not well, but they, supposedly she was drugged.
Drugged?
They're drugged and kidnapped.
Really?
Yeah, that's the rumor
So
anyway.
how'd she get away? Did they just panic and let her go?
She didn't get away.
No.
They broke
Good
down the
night.
doors
Yeah,
in the
they tracked their
Charlestown
phone and stuff like
project.
that.
The surveillance
Surveillance
on the
had 'em.
MBTA is what got him.
The hours that someone spent going through the...
Going through all those
But
tapes.
thank the Lord, right?
Yeah, thank God.
Facial recognition, it doesnesn't take as long anymore. They apply facial recognition software, they're looking for her face, and then when they see who she's with, they're looking for all three faces.
Good, how you doing?
Horrible, though.
So the
But she's
computer runs the
lucky.
model and just checks all the video footage looking for
Does
that.
that quick, huh?
Well, quicker than one single individual person going
Yes.
through hours of footage.
I'm going to text Patrick.
Thanks. Text him too, because he's going to be up here pretty soon. Actually, can you text him too? Because I can't get my text thing to show.
Tim Olson?
Yeah.
I'll text him. Hey, Tim Olson.
Oh, he snuck in. He's hiding behind Andrea.
You wanted me to text you to tell you where.
I didn't even see him sitting there behind you, Andrea.
You got it.
Marissa? I can't text anybody right now. My phone's acting weird.
I just texted.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
I just texted Patrick. He's coming
We
from the
want to
COA.
start with the announcements and everything?
Yeah, so we're back in open session here. It is 7:42. We'll start with some announcements and board openings. Board and committee openings, we have a Board of Health position, Town Hall Building Committee, 2 openings, Open Space Committee, a few openings. Also, we have the Planning Board is working on a section of the master plan, the housing update, and I'll just read it if you haven't seen it online or in other forums. They're having a handful of public forums. The Hamilton Planning Board, with support from a consultant, is revising the housing component of the housing component of the town's master plan. Public input is critical to understanding the needs and concerns of Hamilton's residents. Come and learn about the results of the community focus groups and survey, and contribute to the conversation around the town's current and future housing needs. Public forums, February 5th, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Hamilton Wenham Library. March 20th, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Regional High School cafeteria. So please, if you're interested in more information, please contact Patrick Reffett, 978-626-5248. And then that's it for announcements. And then we have a section for public comment for 3 minutes if anything's not on the agenda, if anybody wants to come up.
Duke Seaver, Essex Street. In Methuen, they have stopped recycling in condo units. The city did it. They just said, put your recycling stuff in the rubbish, and out it goes. I think it might catch on because there's no money in recycling anymore. So I'm just bringing it to your attention in case they start thinking of the condo associations around Hamilton.
Yeah, I just saw an article recently that a couple other towns have stopped recycling and they're just putting it in the trash. All right, anybody else? Okay. Now we'll do some Selectmen Town Manager reports. I'll start with Allison.
I don't have a lot. I have more things that are on the agenda, so for the sake of time and 7:45, I'm happy to pass on mine.
All right. Bill?
I just want to start out by some big news today. Just want to recognize all the law enforcement agencies of Boston and Charlestown and state agencies are able to bring home a girl to her family tonight that grew up in Hamilton, Wenham. So glad to have Olivia Ambrose back with her family. So big deal today. So I want to thank everybody who helped that happen. On the committees we have a retirement in the library. The director, Jan Dempsey, is Dempsey's retiring, so there's going to be a search committee put together for find a replacement for her. Affordable Housing Trust, we have a few things we're trying to do, but I don't know if we have a new meeting on the agenda yet, but we're trying to put together a warrant article to,
July 31st at 6 p.m.
what date is it?
Sorry, January
I was gonna say
31st.
July?
January 31st at 6 p.m. I wish it was July 31st.
Warrant.
It's not on our calendar yet, but it's,
It hasn't been posted
hasn't been
yet,
posted yet. So January 31st, we're going to be putting together a warrant for, to sort of revise the count of the members, whether they need to be citizens, and what the quorum will be. So that will come up at our January 31st meeting.
Eagerly anticipating the draft of that warrant article.
That's all I have
So
today.
you got, Jeff?
Really, Tim is going to talk about the Town Hall Building Committee, so I'll leave that for Tim. And then, just real quickly, the Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary Working Group. We're kind of on hold. We're waiting for the seminary's working group that's going to complement ours to come together. So I will update you if anything changes there, but that's all I've got.
All right. Mine's pretty brief, too. Scott Mattern can't be with us tonight, but he wanted to relay a couple of brief things. The Patton Homestead Incorporated group has a meeting in February or they're coming to one of our meetings in February with recommended usage and pricing for the homestead. They're also having a workshop in February to develop messaging for capital fundraising that they'd like to get started soon. Also, the rec department will be meeting on Monday the 28th at the rec department at 6:30. They don't have an agenda yet, but keep an eye out. I'm sure they're talking about turf field and winter programming. Also, the Conservation Commission meets tomorrow night. They are probably closing the public hearing on the Weaver Pond dredging. We did it about 10 years ago. It's due for another dredging, getting rid of the invasive species there. And they'll be discussing that, as well as the Patton Ridge homes and the memorandum of understanding with the open space and the management of it, dealing with the mowing and some other mulching and some beech trees and whatnot. I think they're finally getting to the end of that with the details of the planning. It's taken a little bit of time, but I think most people are on the same page about it, and they'll be talking about that tomorrow night. And then upcoming, we have a budget review on the 26th with the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom at 8 a.m., most likely here in the Memorial Room. We haven't posted it yet, but we will in the next couple days. And that's it for me. Joe?
Right. I'll be brief as well. Bill already mentioned the retirement of Jan Dempsey, so you'll be getting tonight the town manager's budget proposal for FY20. I want to take the opportunity to thank Marissa Batista and Assistant Accountant Diane Katz for their help in putting this budget together. You'll be getting budget books, each of you, by Thursday at the latest, and the FinCom as well will be getting them, so you'll have a couple days to look at them before we meet on Saturday morning. I do, when we talk about it, I do have a small one-pager just to show you in broad strokes outline what we're talking about, but I'll save that to that part of the agenda. Development has begun, or pre-development has begun at the Canterbrook site. Demolition is scheduled to begin imminently, and other site prep work has already started. Skip that one. Wanted to let you know that there was a recent joint meeting between the Hamilton and Wenham Boards of Health. They've discussed a number of issues around joint adoption of rules and bylaws, particularly in areas where the community shares jurisdiction, such as the schools and the library. They'll be looking at potentially making some votes to allow the schools to enforce the no smoking prohibition on school property. We'll let you know what those are, but the Board of Health is a very autonomous board, and they have the ability to promulgate rules in support of state mandates, so they don't really need any sign-off from you. Under the update on town manager goals, the main one I will talk about is that we have interviewed 2 finalist candidates last Wednesday for the director of the Patton Homestead position. They're both very good candidates, both very different candidates, but both very well qualified and seem very capable. I am completing checking of references right now, and it is my expectation that I will make a decision and offer the job to somebody this week. So both candidates are interested and have said that they will accept if offered. So my hope is to have them in place by the late of the first week in February, 2 to 3 weeks out from that.
All right.
So, and the rest of the town manager's report will be on the town website tomorrow morning.
All right, perfect. All right, now we have department reports. We'll start with Town Hall renovations update with our Public Works Director, Tim Olson. And if the board doesn't mind, we're going to kind of skip to our agenda after Tim updates us on the building renovations at Town Hall, because I'm trying to be nice to him so he can pick up his daughter at hockey. So Tim, if you could give us your update on Town Hall renovations, and then we'll move into some of the agenda items that you're involved in.
Tim Olson, DPW Director. We've been meeting recently. I think it was the 16th we met last time. What we've done so far is we have hired an OPM, and now we have hired a design architect, Lerner Lads in Bartlett out of Pawtucket, Rhode Island. They have put together some, as part of the feasibility study, they put together plans for a hazmat study, as well as surveying of the property and soil geotechnical analysis of the building. What they're looking at is potentially, obviously, the use of or reuse of this building as much as possible, but there may be some added items such as enlarging the septic system, as well as a possible small addition depending on space needs. So they want to make sure that they have everything out in the open as soon as and upfront as possible to make those design recommendations and concept drawings and things like that. So that's going to be happening. Those 3 items should be happening within the next couple of weeks. They presented to the building committee a couple concept designs after meeting with the department heads individually, looking at the space needs and programming. So they met with each department head and discussed what they needed in their department with their current needs as well as their staff needs, and tried to develop some type of concepts of using the existing building in its existing footprint, as well as potential small additions. And then they had 3 different design concepts with a kind of different size additions and what that would mean for the building and the uses and things like that. So one big question that has came up that needs to kind of be decided fairly quickly is what we plan to do, or what Hamilton would like us to do with the second floor space. That will greatly kind of change our design alternatives. We could use a second floor as additional office space, as it currently is, with some modifications, or as potential selectmen meeting space, or even bring it back to kind of a theater and stage community room. I know Topsfield did that recently. So what we need to kind of direct the OPM and designer is in what direction is the town wanting us to move in. You know, the building committee has discussed that briefly, but I believe we would be looking for the selectmen's opinion, as well as potentially some of the community's opinion on what way they would like to see town hall and what use for that second floor. It would determine, obviously, if we use it for meeting space, then we would have that extra square footage to use, but then we would try to figure out where, you know, additional office space would go, or vice versa, or the office space, and then where would the meeting space go. So it would greatly kind of change our outlook and our design with that use. It is a large space, and square footage does cost money, additional money, potentially even in a large addition, if we want to use that for a community room or selectmen meeting space.
Right.
One option is maybe using the basement as more of the temporary occupancy uses, as in Board of Selectmen meeting space, or conference rooms, or part-time employment office space. So we're kind of looking at that, but we really need to get a kind of a direction on what the community wants out of that second floor.
It's about $300 a square foot. Is that what we're looking at?
We're potentially, it could be higher than that. I think in recent bids that they've seen is closer to $450 or so. That's finished. That's
right.
Soft costs included. Right. So yeah. So I think, I'm not sure how we want to handle that, but I know they've been looking for a direction sooner than later. That's one of our key points in our meetings, is what we plan to do with that large space. So
When do we get the structural analysis back?
structural is pretty much completed. I haven't got anything formally back, and I haven't presented it to the committee, but they have indicated to me that there is really no major issues with this building that they could see.
That's good.
So it does look like it is usable, and they actually are very excited because they feel it's in very good shape to reuse and to bring back to present needs. So, but yeah, it's really kind of, we're looking at alternatives at this point and getting ready to find what kind of really makes sense and bring it in, possibly some public presentations, bring it out in the open for people to take a look at and to evaluate and kind of digest. And, we'll go from there. I think we're still keeping them on track to have something more formal.
Can I have certain options, like option A, B, and C? Is that the goal to sort of?
At this point, yes. We're looking at having a couple different options for the community to look at and to, I don't know if vote on is the right word, but just to kind of get an idea of what we could do. And obviously with those options, there would be an estimate of cost. And I don't know at this point, Joe and I have talked about it, and we're not really sure if we're going to be ready for annual town meeting. We want to make sure that we are ready, and we're still moving forward in that direction. I want to continue to work with the designers and the OPMs to get to that point, but then we have to make that determination as a group to see that we want to make sure we have everything, people understand it, as well as hopefully a successful vote, and bring out all that information prior to it. We're not sure if we have enough time to do that.
I just add that, I think that I have a lot of faith in both the OPM and in the designers that were selected. I think that my concern is that they can get their work done in time. What I'm not sure of is if we have time from when they finish their work to share that with the public in a meaningful enough way to get a vote on April 6th. To that end, I've told Tim privately, I want them to keep doing their work as quickly as they can. But we expect that, if we get to the first week of March and we're not ready to start talking publicly about what the options are and what we want people to consider, then I would suggest that we don't plan to have that on the agenda until it's ready. For town meeting. So I would say that we may instead ask at the annual town meeting for some sum of money to continue developing design alternatives to toward construction documents, and that we plan on a special town meeting for a vote and a potential appropriation to do a project. But that would be after we had fully developed what the design alternatives were and what the costs were, so that people would know what they're voting on. I don't, it's not a Hamilton thing. No town that I've ever been in or witnessed do they take kindly to being asked for millions of dollars on a 2 or 3 week notice.
Right.
So it's not worth even presenting the status?
Oh, we will be able to present stats. We'll be able to present design concepts and what they might look like, and rough estimates of what each would cost as justification for asking for additional money to continue the planning. And we get some sense at that point, maybe we could distill it down from 4 or 3 to 2. And so we'll have the designers working on 1 or 2 sets of plans. But we'll have enough information to say, look, we're on the right track. Which direction do you want us to go in? And then maybe ask at the spring, special town meeting in the fall for the full enchilada.
And that's kind of why they're looking for kind of a direction on that second floor, because that will really change things up. It's a large space that they have to make different.
There's a lot of different configurations.
Configurations, correct. Yep.
So what can we do to help you and the committee get to that point with some public forum, some outreach via a survey or anything like that?
I think, I'm not sure if anything has been talked about in the community at this point. I mean, even prior to me starting working here, I'm not sure what the feeling is out in the community if it's known at this point.
I think that my generality of the kind of consensus of the community is that they know that for years now that Town Hall needs improvements and renovations, but I don't think the scope of it in the cost of it. I think everyone's kind of looked at Wenham's Town Hall, and they know the price that it costs Wenham to do. And so they're comparatively comparing it to what we're going to do. I don't know if that's accurate or inaccurate, so we'll, I think once we get some more plans and estimates, then more people will understand what we're looking at.
I mean, I think the question I guess I would ask, if there was going to be a survey, is the community looking for that to be a community room?
Right.
Because if not, and with the stage, because if that's the case, then the stage, that would be potential office space. And if that's the scenario that people would like to go with, then that changes even the stage area for we would have to find office space somewhere else.
Right, you'd have to do an addition or
right. If it's just the second floor, I mean, that was kind of one of the alternatives was the new Board of Selectmen meeting room. So that doesn't really change things too much, but the stage as well as that configuration would be somewhat challenging to find additional space within this building.
Right, so it's kind of whether the second floor is either offices or meeting rooms and community space, right? That's kind of
that's correct.
The two main things.
I mean, it could be office space because, like I said, maybe a scenario would be having the Board of Selectmen meeting room in the basement. Therefore, that whole second floor could be offices.
Right.
We could configure it and design it in a way that it would be much more appealing than it is now. But if it's going to be used as an open room with theater and community room and stage, and that would take away that whole option.
I think we need some deliverable, some one page, option A, option B, option C, get that out of the community, and then we can sort of look at it. But I'm not sure what is that in the proposal?
LLB's working on some changes based on what they heard from the building committee last week anyway. So they'll have they'll have another option or two.
I think we should have, maybe potentially 4 or 5 options at the next meeting on the 30th.
Some of those things out with a survey question saying, hey, look, these are kind of the things we're looking at and why. What are your preferences based on these 5 alternatives? Try and start getting votes toward a consensus of 2 or 3 that could be considered down the road. I think that there are a host of different ways to look at this. Tim and I, early on, before LLB was even on board, talked about ideas like, additions to this building will be both difficult and expensive because it's a historic building in the middle of our historic district. A small addition to the back building in the DPW won't be anywhere near as costly or difficult to do because it is both outside the historic district and it's not a historical building. If you did a small 1-story building out there and moved some of the DPW offices and the water office out there, that creates some space on the second floor. One of the things that I had thought was it's very common to see the outward-facing departments, treasurer clerk, assessor, town clerk, inspectional services on the first floor of a municipal building with the administrative offices and meeting space on the second floor. So our basement, I think, is well suited to continue to be storage as long as we clean it up and we're sure that it's not, part of any kind of an issue with the building health in general. So, those were my basic ideas as a layman with no experience at all. So there's a host of different ways to go. Other people have said that they wanted to see offices in the basement. Other people have said they wanted to see all offices on the second floor. We need to know not what Joe thinks or Tim thinks, but what the community at large would like us to do with the building. The great news is structurally it's in very good shape, and that's great because I do think it's an asset to the community the way it is. But we do need to make it function for this generation and the generations coming up.
Agreed.
Allison, you've done some work on meeting space. I think that's the conundrum we have is how, and I'm not sure that the community can help us answer what the best use of that space is, whether it is used as it was intended, and those for you listening or watching on TV, it was built to be a theater. It's a theater, there's a stage, there are dressing rooms, it's beautiful cathedral ceiling, beautiful windows. It's been, right now, if you walked in there are cubes that's set up in the theater area so that it's used as office space. So really what the architect is asking the building committee is to come back with the best use of that space so that they can make all the, like Tim has talked about, that would affect the square footage of office space within the building, the necessity to add additional space, to put DPW out in the back. But that's where we are right now, is really determining the best use of that space.
So I'm assuming you've done all the programming, you know how many square feet, how many offices you need, you have that whole list right now, just fitting all that stuff into the box, right?
That's correct.
Except for meeting space.
So that
Right.
big room upstairs, is that approximately the same, with excluding the loft and excluding the stage, is it approximately the same size as this room?
No, it's
Bigger.
probably
It's
3
big.
times bigger.
I say 3 times.
Three?
I think it's about 2,200 square feet.
On the smallest model that our design they put together, using that as a meeting room and offices, they had about 100 people in there, right, Tim?
Yeah,
On one of their,
Well, I was just trying to figure, right now, there's only 6 offices
right.
there, right?
This area right here is just the stage.
No, forget about the stage.
Right. That,
The main room, there's 6 offices, correct? Today?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Correct.
So you can easily put 6 offices here, in theory. To me, then it would make a better meeting space, because the acoustics are off. And all I've heard from residents over the last 10 years is, because to me, that dome is not effective for heat, it's not effective for air conditioning, it's not effective for sound. So to me, do a tin roof right across over the thing. But they have cardiac arrest, which I respect that they have cardiac arrest. So if they want the dome, it should be a meeting room with the dome.
Right, shaded.
Because it is not, if you're gonna leave that dome, you should not have offices in it, in my opinion. You can have them on the stage, and in my personal opinion, I don't know that we have a need for another theater or a stage as a town. We may, I haven't heard anyone put it towards me, but what I have heard for years and years and years is leave that dome alone. So if all the residents want the dome, it should be a meeting, in my opinion, it should be a meeting room.
You and I agree, so.
I'm kind of on the same page.
Yeah, I mean,
with that.
there was a design concept that kind of, the meeting room upstairs was about 3/4 of the size, and that back half, or back quarter, I guess, of that meeting room was office space. So they.
So the stage and a little bit more in the meeting room would become office space.
Correct.
Yeah, or even, it would, to me, it would be better off even to have a, one large meeting room, and then a conference room off of that, and then offices. Because you have a need for another conference room, I think.
Oh, yeah, right.
they had
right.
that in there.
Yeah.
There's also, I mean, by programming the building in that kind of way, then Bill will correct me where I'm wrong, because he knows this stuff way better than I, but we'd be able to section off the building at night when you had different boards and committees meeting up there. They'd be able to enter through a separate entrance that has an elevator that goes up. This floor would be locked, and you'd be able to protect this area, have people go back and forth, up and down. You'd have your handicap accessible bathrooms adjacent to it, and you'd be able to use the upstairs building and the meeting space as you needed, and have it not affect the entire building being open. I think that's better from operationally for a number of different reasons. And I do think that, you know, some of the offices that work closely with the Board of Selectmen or some of the other committees, my office, Marissa's office, could be co-located near the meeting space on the second floor, and then all other outward-facing departments. I think that there's room. Drayton, one of the architects, told me he thought there was enough room on the first floor to basically put all that there, as long as we moved Tim out of the building.
Is there, I mean, in terms of the use of the building, we're gonna have more use, whether it's a meeting, but are they looking at the overall site too, parking and everything? Because, I mean, there's not enough parking on this. So I couldn't even have a
Yeah.
theater here because there's not parking for.
There's not parking.
theater,
Right,
so-
right.
I
I
don't
mean,
know
that's
how
a
that would
good
even
point. I mean,
work.
that's something that we had talked about, that I don't even know if this site, the parcel itself, could accommodate. Back in the day, before maybe DPW was out there, when they had a lot of, more parking, or that might have been where they parked out there.
It was all tie-ups for horses.
Oh, the other thing, too, I forgot to mention, is I think having, in this particular type of basement, just an old 250-year-old basement, I think it's horrible to put employees down there to work full-time.
Point
I think
taken.
it kills morale, it's moldy, I don't think we should put anyone in the basement to work full-time.
Point well taken, and
Yep.
Allison, as somebody who has previously, in a different job, worked in the basement office,
Yeah, it's not fun.
I concur.
Has there been any, I haven't seen the
Great
design
office
plan
space
so
right here.
far. Is there any
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
of,
it's perfect.
a lot of places are moving towards kind of, I'll call it one-stop shopping, where you come into the building and there's kind of a concierge, and they can handle a bunch of different things and dispatch either the stuff you're asking from them, or they can get it to directing you to a different department.
So that's an
You can pay
operational
it
thing?
at one thing, you can pay your water bill there, you can do your tax bill there, and then it gets distributed out. So there's not so many different
That's
places you
right.
have to go around
Next
the
counter.
building.
I think
Have to go next counter.
we haven't specifically talked about that, but as Joe was mentioning before, we've tried to concentrate on having the departments that have a lot of customer interaction on one level. And I think some of the design concepts that they had put together was, a lot of them had the counter
Yeah.
in the hallway. So it was just hallway, open.
We could move to something like that operationally if we had the layout the right way.
Right.
Where, how we're currently configured, it would make it a lot more difficult. I wouldn't say impossible, it would certainly make it a lot more difficult. So that, having those kind of ideas in this phase is important, because the architect can be more free to think a little bit about that kind of thing. What I had asked the architect was, don't think about how our employees are doing their jobs now, think about how we'll be doing it in the next 25 and 50 years. This building's lasted roughly 100 years in more or less this configuration. Let's make sure that whatever we ask the town to spend money on, it lasts the next 100 years.
I agree.
When's your next meeting?
The 30th at 5 PM. It's a public meeting, it's right here in this room.
Any plan to move the gas tanks?
Yes, that's part of this project. So, okay, well, I appreciate everybody's input. I mean, we're trying just to kind of direct them as best we can at this point. I know it's early on, so there's going to be several iterations and changes and things along the way, so.
Who makes the decision? What's the decision structure for the
Well, the funding's going to be a town.
funding I get,
decision.
but in terms of pointing the architect in the right direction, is it the
That's
committees making those
primarily what
decisions?
the building committee is for.
Are you looking
I think
for-
they're
are you looking
I
for
was just looking
input?
we were just looking for input.
Yeah, I'd imagine the
at
building
this
committee
point,
would
so-
bring something
Yeah.
to the Board of Selectmen at some point, just at least
Yep.
to give us a report,
Yeah,
or
well, I mean, we've got to go, through the Historic Commission and all this.
got a lot of other things to get to.
So can we take a vote or a poll straw of
Second floor?
second floor for them? Does that help them?
That'd be great.
That help
Yeah,
you?
that would help. That would help. a lot.
Do you want to,
I make a motion that the Board of Selectmen use the second floor meeting space in the design plan going forward as meeting space.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
So, just so I'm clear, the whole thing, including the stage and all that, is that what
I don't think we need the
Meeting
stage.
and office space?
Yeah, I don't think we need the stage. I'm talking about
Meeting
the
space.
dome.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need the whole
Don't.
second floor, I just think a reasonable meeting space and
For you
some,
guys, yeah,
for
for
us,
this,
and then
yeah.
conference
For
rooms,
temporary,
whatever
yeah.
else.
Yeah, so if there's offices in there,
Offices slash
depending on the size.
conference.
I think two
that's
meetings,
fine.
I think two
Absolutely.
meetings, two or three
Yeah.
meeting
Two or three meeting
spaces.
spaces
Yeah.
with offices, some
Gotcha.
associated offices.
Yeah.
Flexible meeting spaces with some offices, not a stage, not a theater.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna take the stage right out.
Yeah.
So it'll all be one
Yeah.
level.
And make this meeting,
Oh, that
make
makes
this
sense.
Make this
desk,
office.
make this counter
Yeah,
for
counter, a desk,
planning
and
department,
office.
building department, something like that down here, where you can walk in the door and know where it is.
Right, yeah.
Don't have to go find somebody upstairs.
Is that good guidance?
Does that
Can you
help?
share
Patrick, you have anything to add to that or
some
not?
of those design?
You've been upstairs for a long time. You got anything to add?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what
Yeah,
fine.
I put it on the drop, I can add you to the Dropbox.
Add me to the Dropbox.
These designs were just for them, just to start discussion.
Yeah, I'm just curious at
Very
what's getting
preliminary.
kicked around.
Is it on the
Yeah.
website or
Just the
not?
water abatement with
Yeah.
him, and then try and get him out of here.
Yeah. So we're going to move around a little bit since Tim's still standing up there and he's anxious to get out of here, to our fourth agenda item, water abatement for 484 Bay Road. There's some info in your packets, I believe, and it was emailed to everybody earlier on this about leaky something and et cetera.
Tim, you want to explain?
Yeah, it's actually an old account that we had to correct upon my arrival here. The issue why this has taken so long is the resident has paid off She was currently, or was in the deficit on some of her bills. She's paid them up to date, and therefore, the deal that I had made was that once she paid off and got up to speed on her bills, then I would submit for an abatement. This abatement goes back to, I think, 2012.
Yeah,
Bill in 2012, I think. But it was kind of postponed because of the errors in the account that
Right.
have been fixed.
Plus, you wanted the resident to be current before you could abate, which
That
makes
was-
total sense to me.
That was correct, yep.
So what do we need to do for you, Tim, with this abatement?
If you look at it and you're in agreement with it and approve it, that's basically what I'm looking for, is approval for the abatement. I believe it would, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it was roughly about half the bill.
Yeah, the original bill set back in July 2012 was for $1,009.95 with the revised water bill calculations. The revised water bill is calculated at $560.15 with an abatement amount of $449.80. All accrued interest on Bill 171-203 will be removed.
Correct.
I move that we approve the water abatement application from Catherine Bradford, and the amount requested is $449.80.
I don't know that we can abate a 2012 bill, and I don't understand why it didn't go to lien. If we lien everything over $20 every year that's not paid. But I don't know that you legally can abate this. And not Joe, but our prior town manager, I spoke to repeatedly about, and I didn't even know he hired an outside consultant to correct the errors I found in our water billing, and was told we were done. So this is no reflection on anyone in this room, but I don't know that we can, I don't think we can legally do this. And I'm concerned our process is still off kilter if we're getting a bill from 2012 and 2019.
Is the main reason why we're getting this now is because of they weren't up to current status?
Yep.
And so it's taken this long to get up to current status?
What do you mean by not up to current status?
They still owed the town money.
So, but then it should have flowed to lien.
I believe they,
I don't know if we can talk about this in open session, because we've
That's
given the
fine.
person's name and everything. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't have a problem abating a resident that had an issue. I don't know if this is more for executive session, if it would qualify, but I don't think you can do this.
Do you think, if it's on the level, would you agree with this abatement?
If it was legal,
Like I'm saying, could we vote to
Pending-
say pending
legal review.
I don't know. I have so many issues with it, in all honesty. I do.
I would entertain a motion to abate it pending legal review, and then we can figure that out. And then if it is, we're okay. Otherwise, it's going to come back to us, and we can talk about it.
I agree, you can take that vote, and I will abstain from it.
Okay? How do you feel, Jeff?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I
Bill?
make a motion that we approve abatement pending a further legal review of the process.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Allison, abstention?
Actually opposed.
Opposed, okay.
Thank you.
Tim, please send that to Donna tomorrow.
yeah, I'll find it.
Can we find
Definitely
out more
find-
information too on why it didn't follow the right process as far as getting liened after all of this? That makes no sense.
I think that bill was an error. I believe that, if I remember,
So let's get all that, and we'll
think,
provide an
yeah.
answer back to the board at the next
Absolutely, I'll look
meeting.
at the account and,
We'll provide an answer back to the board at the next meeting,
Yep.
both whether the bill was allowed to be abated or not legally, and what the problem in the process from 2012 was, that, and make sure that we're not having any similar problems going forward.
Right. Right, because these water abatements and, well, Allison, we all know that we've had issues, to say the least.
Yeah.
And then we've got you for one more thing, right, Tim?
yes.
Number 5, we'll move right on to it, plowing of private ways, policy discussion.
So I know Joe and I have talked to the group briefly. We were plowing basically the roads that we had in the past this winter with the intention of looking at these private roads in a little bit more detail for the next winter. And I had some time to look at some of these roads, and there's approximately 12 that we do plow, 12 private roads. They do conform to the current bylaw, Chapter 10, Section 12. And I believe that might be in your packets for you to read. There's certain criteria for houses, and then it has to be a laid-out roadway.
Right.
In good condition.
And they've had the petition.
And then the residents have to sign a petition. So all the 12 seem to have qualified under the current bylaw. The issues that have kind of arose during my research was that most of these roads do have restrictions on them in their deed, stating that the residents are responsible for plowing and maintaining of the roadway. So really all I'm looking forward is, and like I said, Joe and I are going to look in this more detail. We're going to look at the bylaw. We're going to also look at to see if the bylaw if any revisions are necessary in the bylaw. But we are making sure prior to the following winter that we have all the private roads that we are plowing they meet criteria that we set forth, and we are legal to do so. I'm not sure which trumps what, if the bylaw takes control, if there is a deed restriction, or possibly if that bylaw needs to read something pertaining to deed restrictions, and making sure that any deed restrictions that are present are removed by the planning board. I'm not sure. That's something that Joe and I will have to discuss. But I just want to make sure that we are set, and it's going to take some time to look at them individually. So.
Right. I think that's a problem we've been running into, because this has been an ongoing thing since I've been on the board, the plowing, and also it's coming up with trash. You know, we've got planning board deed restricting and conditions on things, and then it goes a completely different way. And I want to make sure we're all in lockstep with how we're going to handle these developments and roads and stuff like that.
It's perhaps an idea that you could put it on for a joint meeting with the planning board to have some discussion between the two boards about how you want to look at things going forward. As far as in looking at what's transpired in the past, you know, not trying to duck the issue, but I started September 4th, and then we spent a lot of time getting ready for special town meeting, and then immediately after special town meeting, I was asked about plowing of private roads. After conferring with Tim and kind of identifying some of the issues, what we had decided, and I thought we had communicated, but maybe I hadn't done a good enough job, is we were going to kind of hold with the status quo for this year to get ourselves, because, you know, by October, we weren't sure when the personnel call was going to happen, and there was a lot going on to ask him to do a complete review of the roads and whether or not they were, you know, there needed to be a change, and if that change included being an amendment to the bylaw, or if it was just a policy decision that we could make. So we had said we would hold this season under the current roads that we were already plowing, with an eye toward correcting whatever inequity might be uncovered when we start to look at it. It is still our goal, mine and Tim's, to have some kind of a recommendation for you all by the spring, and that may require you know, a special town meeting warrant article to correct the bylaw if you all feel that's necessary as a policy decision. Or it may just be something we can clean up, you know, operational policy-wise. But we need to finish our work and make sure we know the ramifications of the deed restriction versus what the bylaw says.
Mm-hmm.
What's the roads is it in our package what roads we're doing and not doing?
I didn't see it.
I don't think it is.
The 11 you talked about.
12 are?
I know what the 12 are, yeah. Currently plowed is Beach Street Extension, the cul-de-sac, not the right-of-way. Berrywood Lane, Birch Road, Black Brook Road, Carriage Lane, Don Byrne Way, Norris Road, Paddock Lane, Sagamore Farm Road, Sunset Lane, Villa Road, and Woodland Mead.
Okay.
A lot of other, some other criteria that would, if I offer a suggestion, a lot of my goal is, you know, we'll plow any road if it's deemed to be plowed. You know, I look at length, I look at width, I look at the ability to for our guys to plow it safely, to be able to turn around. Long hours out there, the last thing I want is them backing up a big truck in a tight road in the middle of a snowstorm. So I look at the safety of the plow driver. So a lot of those other criteria we could look at and maybe even include, as long as it's safe for my plow driver to plow it. That's my biggest, my biggest issue.
So I thought we stopped doing Beach Street Extension, but maybe there's 2 of them.
Yeah, we stopped doing the right-of-way.
Because it's less than 8 feet wide.
Yeah, and it's not a laid-out road. It's like
Perfect, okay.
It's like a way.
Yeah.
The other side, the cul-de-sac side, is what we still plow, and I believe it's more for operational plowing purposes.
So what I don't want is to be responding to one road's requests and not another, or, you know.
I think it's got to be all done at once.
And
Correct.
that's why we had proposed waiting until the end of this season to really dig into it, to make sure we're not missing anything.
So since we have Patrick in the room here too, I think it's worth the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board having either a working session or a joint meeting to talk about plowing and unplowing, or plowing of unpaved, paved roads, approved roads. I mean, we're kind of talking about a bunch of different things here.
Right.
Trash stuff, all the deed restrictions and the stuff they put on all the new developments and stuff. They get us all on the same page here. I think that's really crucial to moving forward, because it seems like one person asks and they say, well, these people have it, but these people don't, and these people do, and these people don't. We're kind of pitting neighborhoods against each other, and I don't want to do that. I want to have it just all across the board, the same policy for every new development or whatever we've got existing for approved roads. You think that's worthwhile to have some kind of a joint talk with them?
Yeah, they capture all the stuff together.
Get all the parties in the room and
Well, we've seen that we don't know, it's all one-offs, and then you try and collect the information later.
Right, exactly.
I think it's whatever the developer brings to the planning board, unfortunately, going forward. So they like to cut things back so
Right.
that it's a private road.
Right,
And
so
then
they
it's
don't
the
have to
people
make
who
it as
buy
wide.
the home that are stuck with the conditions
Right.
that the
I think it's great for the
Developer
developer to
made.
sell to the town, oh, you know, we're going to build this, it's going to get you X amount of dollars in new tax revenue, and you're not going to have to take care of trash and plowing and this and that and the other thing, because we're just going to make it as a part of the deed restriction. Well, that's great until the homeowners get into town, and then they realize, oh, wait a minute, so-and-so's private way doesn't have this problem, this one doesn't have that problem. Now they're coming before you, asking, why did the planning board do this to us? Generally, it wasn't the planning board, it was probably the developer who proposed it in the first
Yeah,
place.
to get it passed.
So,
Yeah, just to underscore that, I have yet to see a single planning board decision that said that the town would be the one to honor assuming and addressing responsibilities for paving, for maintenance, for snow, for garbage removal, any of the kinds of services that, you know, for one reason or another, over the years, those things have, and those requirements have somehow fallen away in a very random fashion, where I've yet to see any directive, anything official that said that, you know, although the planning board excluded any municipal responsibility for such and such activities, that is negated and we'll do those hereafter. It just never happened. And for some reason or another, little by little over time, they've just been negated. The planning board did discuss this at length about 2 months ago when I brought it to their attention at the request of the Board of Selectmen. They reiterated the fact that they still hold fast to the restrictions that they've imposed on developments hereafter, because, as you say, it's the developer that has wanted to build smaller roads, have less services, less impact on the town, less impact on the homeowners associations or whatever over time. But again, those have frittered away. The planning board has upheld their earlier stances in all of those decisions to basically say that, they should not be taking place. We should not be doing that, and that's the recommendation that they sent through me to the Board of Selectmen.
All right, so it seems like maybe we don't need to talk to them because they seem like they've got their plan and they're...
These 11 streets, do they have clear recent decisions, special permits that exclude? Are these old enough that they that we don't have record of? The 12%.
The permits or the petitions that I received for these 12 are relatively new. I think they were like 2015, because I think the bylaw was either revised or a newer bylaw right before then. I think my predecessor actually gave some recommendations on some of this criteria.
Right, but what about Pat
Allison,
puts
I'm
an
not sure if you
application in to pave? I mean, but we just said, like the same with trash, right? Now they're going to go after paving. Plowing.
Well, we've got, as far as that goes, you've got, I think, in the packet, a draft of a new policy on road acceptance that Scott's been working on your behalf to consider for the town.
Sorry, I meant paving. I meant plowing. Pat Ridge says, no, you should plow. Because you plow wouldn't let me.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of open up.
Pat Ridge.
The snowball, right?
Well, it does, but if you don't, see, to my way of thinking, I think you may want to actually have a conversation with the planning board so that you can leave that meeting unified in how you want to do these things going forward, because right now, we're still in this predicament. The planning board allowed these things with deed restrictions. Like I said, may not have been proposed by the planning board, or in some cases, maybe they were, and most likely it was proposed by the developer because he was trying to cut costs. It costs less to lay out an 18-foot wide road than it does a 24-foot wide road, right? And so he can keep his costs down and still turn around and sell his houses. He sells it to the town as you're not going to have these expenses later on because the homeowners are going to do it. But the homeowners don't realize that when they buy the houses.
Right. Then they come to us.
Then they come to us to want to overturn it, saying, well, ultimately, the Board of Selectmen can overturn that decision. Well, if you don't meet and come to some agreement on the way you want to go going forward, then we're going to continue to have the inequity.
So I researched every single road. I can pull up the deeds for you. I looked at all of them. And I think where the dilemma came in for plowing of private roads is you had a TA that was very sympathetic to all residents. So who passed a bylaw that could get passed, and that's why they did the 4 or more, because she was sympathetic to the residents, and therefore did so. And that's what you're left with. Like, we were doing some that weren't even roads, and we were plowing. I agree with Patrick as far as the planning board, with one exception that I know of, and that is the Patton Ridge development that was just developed. The planning board specifically put in there that they would receive no trash pickup unless the Board of Selectmen voted differently. So they tied our knickers in a knot in that one. So, and that's unusual for the planning board to do so. All these other are crystal clear. Yeah. You don't get plowing.
Right.
But then the town passed a bylaw.
Correct.
Because of the empathy of our TA to plow those. So we went against our own, we went against, the town in general, not the Board of Selectmen, voted against what the planning board had been doing. But I will say, for Patton Ridge, they did leave it open, and the residents are knocking on our door.
So, where do we go from here?
How many of these do we plow this week? All of them?
All of them. Whenever you plow, you got to plow.
We tried to plow this week. That wasn't very easy, so.
That's the other thing. The town, as far as plowing, the town has to be realistic that every single town, including ours, and especially ours because we're so small, is struggling to get people to plow.
That's correct.
So we don't have the staffing. This was
right.
Nice.
We're already spread thin.
It's nice that the TA wanted to offer this service, and when I was upstairs, I can tell you that the biggest complainers and phone calls you got not from all of them, but we're significantly from the private roads. And it is because they are so narrow, so the neighbor left a car on it, so they went around it, and then they said, now you now come back, he just moved his car, please come back. It was cuckoo. So I think it's, again, a philosophy of the Board of Selectmen, if they want to put it towards the town, to either we keep the bylaw in place as it is, and then you plow every road 4 houses or more, or you put it in front of the town to abolish the bylaw. And if you're a private road, and this is how you were designated and meant and built, then this is how we move forward. But it's to me, it's philosophy right now. It's not, but I know that you're struggling, and every town is struggling to provide the service, and the private roads kind of like more preferential, and they don't get it because they're tiny.
Right, and it's a lot more wear and tear on the equipment for the town.
Well, they're thin and narrow and dead ends.
Yeah.
The dead ends are difficult.
More time, more wear
Then you
and
have
tear.
to go back every spring and repair their lawns because you went onto
Well, it
their
says-
lawn because they're so narrow.
This says no, not responsible for gravel.
Yeah, but they're gonna call
do
anyway,
it.
and we're gonna
They're going to call anyway.
Do it.
we're gonna do
every
it
year.
anyway, because we're good people.
Yeah, they do.
So, I think we need a broader discussion, for sure. I think we, as a board, need to, and maybe we talk to planning board together, but I think we need to figure out, as a Board of Selectmen, whether we, to Allison's point, we continue with this, or we try to change it and bring it back to what it was previously with, if you have a private road, you're responsible for your
Right. I
your
think it also
plowing,
needs.
or you're responsible for updating the road so it's an accepted road.
Correct. And I think it needs to be also known that a lot of the private road residents are concerned during emergency call-outs or response.
Right.
I mean, DPW, we plow up to a doorstop. We'll plow a driveway out.
Right.
If we have to we usually beat the response there because we're out. I mean, we've plowed driveways, we've plowed easements, we've plowed private ways.
We're very good about doing what we need to do when it needs to be done.
When it needs to be done, that's correct. So that's a lot of their concern, is that what happens in a response. We would beat them there and plow out to their, front door, so.
You want to say something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a resident on Smithwood Terrace. So it's a private road, 5 homes. Could you just give me some understanding as to why it would not be included in the 2015
Well, it didn't exist in 2015.
Smithwood Terrace?
Yes. No, if it did, it had 1 house or 2 houses on it. It hasn't been around that long. I was here when it was, well, I
Jeez.
can look them up.
Yeah, come on.
But did your plan say?
I've been there since prior to 2015.
Just make sure you say your names, too.
Yeah, sure.
I'm Allie Moffett. I moved in 2014, and I was the last resident to move in on that road.
Okay.
So it's been there
So
previously.
have you gone to the DPW and asked them plow, or is this the first time you're hearing of this, or where are we at?
every year for our road to be plowed.
Okay.
And it hasn't, there's a cul-de-sac at the end. It's wide enough for a plow truck.
Is it, I'm just looking it up in the assessor's office.
Oh.
Well, the assessors will tell me more on who's on it and stuff.
So what, there's about 5 houses back?
5 houses, yeah. So 20 people, 10 children.
What does the
7
plan
who are in
say for your
school.
house when you bought it? What, does it say that we would provide that service?
I'm not sure. It says it's a private road.
Tim, do you want to say something before you leave?
Yeah, I can answer that question. I did look at Smithwood Terrace recently. There is actually a roadway maintenance agreement signed by all 4 lots that specifically states that they are responsible for plowing and maintenance on the roadway.
And there's 4 houses
What year was
on
that?
it,
What year was that?
It's-
Was it-
according to the assessors.
I don't remember the year of the agreement, but it's on the registry.
Take a guess. I mean, is it 20 years ago or 10 years ago? I mean,
It's
I
not that
would say it's
old of a
5 years
road.
ago, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it
the
seemed like a
problem.
newer document to me.
That's
but-
probably the developer.
But since
Makes
I've
these
been here, I
agreements.
mean, I've only been here for 2 years, that road has never been on the list to plow.
No, it's never been on the list.
So, it wasn't something that we plowed and then I took away. It was never on that
Yeah,
list. to
Right,
begin
because
with.
we've had a bigger issue too with, we've
this guy
kind
probably
of gone back and
doesn't
forth
need
with
to
some
be.
of these, because there was a couple years where, I think just before you came on board, where we said, we're not going to plow anymore. And I think there was one year where it was a little late in the season, and we made the decision to plow that season, but next season, we told them, you have to figure out your own plowing.
Right. And like I said, I mean, if we can come up with certain criteria and whatever rules apply, that I have no problem as long as it's plowable, as long as it's safe for my plow driver and it's agreed upon. If that's the way the town and the selectmen
Yeah.
want to proceed, I have no issues with that. There is a lot of variables, and I want a little bit more direction on which ones to plow.
Right.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it'd be good, so Bobby Warrenberg, it would be good if the town could let us know what the criteria would be if we did want to pursue our road being plowed. What do we need to do?
So the town bylaw, Chapter 10, Section 12 outlines what the criteria for plowing and sanding of private ways should be. The 12 streets that are currently being plowed and sanded meet that criteria. That's not
Okay.
to say that there aren't other private ways that don't meet that criteria. It may very well be that yours does.
Yeah.
Thanks,
We're
Jeff.
not making any changes this year because I'm not recommending that we make any changes this year, I should say, because there are more than just one street to consider, and we don't want to continue to just be seen as reacting to
On a one-off
whatever's in front
basis,
of us.
yeah, I can understand that.
I'd rather we take the time to look at it, make a good recommendation to the board to see which way they want to go. What's your philosophy? Do you want to be plowing these or not? And if so, this is the way we should do it. If not, tell us not to plow any of them anymore, and we'll make a recommendation that this bylaw goes away too. But that's up to them. That's a policy decision and a decision for them in the town meeting if they choose to send it there. Operationally, we'll do what they want us to do. But I'm not recommending any changes for this year. We're into the winter.
Yeah, we're not going to change anything this winter.
Okay. So next winter, is that something that we need to follow up on, or is that something you'll notify us about?
I would say, yeah, look at the bylaw now that you have
Okay.
in your hand.
Yeah.
And then I would probably maybe give a call sometime this spring or summer
Okay.
to Joe or Tim Olson here behind you, the DPW
Great.
director, and just kind of say, hey, where are you in that process, and can you give me any information about it?
So-
Because it's going to take
Okay.
us a little while to figure it all out.
Realistically speaking,
Yeah.
I think you would start the process now if you want to get on for next winter. I would not start it in the summer.
Okay.
And you have to get a contract person for your association. You're gonna have to sign documents, make everybody
Yeah, you're going to have
lines
to talk
up.
to all your neighbors.
Okay.
So
right. It's not a
the
problem.
piece of paper they gave you said it, and one of you can have mine, because there's two of you here.
Okay.
You want-
Yeah, we
okay.
live next
But
door.
I would never start anything in government this summer before the winter to get plowed.
Okay.
true.
So sooner
I
rather
would
than
start
later.
now.
Okay.
She works in government too, so she's got great perspective on this. She's got great perspective on this.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
coming.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I don't think there's anything else on that
You
unless,
still haven't gone through reports. You still have,
you have anything else, Tim?
No, as long as you guys are all set.
You're half of it, no.
Joe, are we all good with can you handle the complete streets?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
No,
we're
that's-
good.
As long as you guys got no other
Yep.
questions.
No, go
Thank
see
you,
her.
sir.
Thank you.
Go pick
Thanks,
up your
Tim.
daughter.
Thank you very much.
Isn't all this part of the process of getting a building permit, or, like, we got a new place going up on Upper Asbury? Is that going to be private, or is it going to be sold as private, or,
What's on
That should
Upper
be-
Asbury?
pardon me?
What's on Upper, oh, Canterbrook Farms?
Yeah.
That went through a whole planning board process.
Yeah,
That went
They
through
have an
planning board,
organization.
and they are supposed to plow,
Yeah.
do their own
Themselves.
trash pickup.
I just was,
It's in
Yes.
are
the,
they doing it at issue time when you
Yes.
issue the permits?
It doesn't say
Yeah,
subject
it's all in
to
the
the
planning,
policy
do with
of
the
the.
planning board.
it always is the permits, but then they
Yeah.
come back to us
Then they
later and
come
have us
back to
change
you
it.
later on, so.
All right, so let's see.
back to the reports.
Back to our department reports.
We still got Patrick and
Let's do,
Andrea, so.
Updated.
Let's do our update on the enforcement of vacant and dilapidated buildings bylaw with respect to 86 Maya Road. Planning and Inspection Director Patrick Reffett is here to speak with us tonight about that. And if you are paying attention or tuned into our last meeting, we had the owners of 86 Meyer Road and quite a few people from the neighborhood. And we made some decisions there, and Patrick's back to update us on it. Sorry, Bob. And this should be fairly quick, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of days right after our last discussion on this in earlier January, we met on the site. We was Bill Olson, Joe Domalowicz, sorry, Joe.
All right.
Kevin O'Connor and myself. We walked through the building. We walked around the site. We had quite a bit of discussion with the property owner, Sammy Herbawi. He's fully understanding that we're very concerned about that property. We want to see it done. And we pushed, and we continue to push. I have asked on a number of occasions for date kinds of requirements relative to individual completions on the site. We don't have that yet. However, we do have a fair amount of good news. They have hired a professional construction manager. He's got a lot of experience in this. His name is Mark Cannell. He's done it in Cambridge, other communities. He's actually worked for these two gentlemen before on a project, I believe, in Andover. We continue to push, again, as I'd mentioned, for dates. As I spoke with Mr. Cannell, which I try to about every third day, he's told me that he sees no reason why this should take any longer than the end of June. So I told him, you know, there's no reason why it should be that long. We want to see some finite dates connected to that. I told him that we also wanted to see a program as to what they were going to do and how they were going to do it. He has already told me that the rough electrical work has been finished. The rough plumbing work has been finished as well. They have gotten an insulation contractor contracted to begin their work shortly. He tells me that as soon as the weather gets better, they'll be doing the stucco on the exterior and at the same time working on the interior. So long story short, we want to see it done by the end of this fiscal year. He has told me that that's eminently doable. He is going to be working on it continuously. I don't think it's a full-time job for him, but he will be working on it through to completion. There are no building code violations connected to it right now. There are no health code violations connected to it right now. We'll continue to monitor that to make sure that those aren't present, and if they are, we pursue them. I know the town manager was speaking with town council regarding some of her input on certain things, so you may want to mention that, Joe.
Yeah, so just immediately prior to our meeting here this evening, I did meet with town council Donna Brewer. She also shared with me and I don't have it, I will share it out to all of the members of the Board of Selectmen after this meeting, another position paper on some legal work she'd done in another community pointing to state code that gives you the right to hold a hearing, an advertised hearing, and find the building to be dangerous if they continue to fail to meet their obligations under our local bylaw. In the interim, she believes that we're kind of on the right course. The local vacant dilapidated building bylaw does allow us, especially considering your vote at your last meeting, that we've asked the homeowners to provide several things, including a general contractor license and holder, a schedule of schedule and timeline for different items to take place within that. We'll reiterate that they have till Monday, the 28th, to provide that to us. If they don't, I'll direct the building inspector to begin assessing fines. The fines can always be waived if they meet their deadlines, but until they are completing work toward the goal of finishing the building, we will start if they don't give us the things we've asked for. And we'll have the goal is to have the schedule of work so that we can schedule the building inspector to be there immediately upon those completion dates to do the inspections and keep them moving.
Yep.
We do not want them to turn around and say we're holding them up at all. And they need to provide us a schedule with, we're going to have the outside finished on this date, we're going to have the insulation finished on this date, so we can get there and do our follow-up inspections so that they can keep moving.
Bill, anything to add?
I mean, yeah, just to sort of second what they had said, but yeah, we walked the property. You know, in my opinion, I think that a July 1st date is a reasonable completion date. I think that we have a pretty broad-reaching bylaw where it's both a vacant and dilapidated building right now. So I don't think I have an issue with charging a fine. I think we would waive the fine after the building has certificate. I think the community, the neighborhoods would be fine waiving that fine on July 1st if the house had a certificate of occupancy.
Yeah.
But we don't have a schedule yet, so we asked for I think 3 or 4 things. They've done one so far, so good step.
Right.
You know,
Did I get a punch list today?
So we got inspectional. We got an inspectional list.
From the building inspector, we got the list of things that need to be.
So I would direct the building commissioner, building inspector to write the notice that Donna talked about today and the verbiage she talked about.
Yeah.
And then I would also encourage him to track everything in writing. Where he goes out there, I'd like everything to be followed up by an email so that there's a written direction and not a verbal description of what's missing. So I saw that today. It looked like a good start, and it needs to be a daily act. I said full time to you. What I meant by that was daily activity, not Saturdays, not Sundays, but daily. So if they show good faith, we'll show good faith, but they haven't. Yeah.
Right. So I think the next step for us is, Patrick, you get some language from Donna for the building inspector to give a written notice. We get a schedule based on the building inspector's timeline or punch list there. And then we start assessing fines, and when July 1 comes, if it's complete, then we discuss waiving the fees or the fines for the C of O at the end of this whole process. And then to your point about Donna's thing, we would, if it's not done by that time, we would have some more
other things
legal
that we can
actions
do.
to take.
I think it's important. I thought we were going to start the fines based on our vote.
We can't. Has to be imposed by the
building inspector.
So
we're
we
going to
gave
start them on the 28th.
So we gave
just
them
because
direction.
we've given them a little window to
Right.
get all their ducks in a row, kind of for timeline and the licensed contractor and everything like that.
I think we should. I mean, with the amount of time that Patrick has spent on this, Joe, you've spent on this, the building inspector has spent on this, the health department spent on this. I think the fines are, we need to start and be aggressive about that. And I know we all want it done, and that's the ultimate goal, but talking about writing off fines too, I'm not that comfortable with at this point, because the owners have had plenty of time to do everything that we've done. We've bent over backwards and given them even more time now to get these things done. So I think we should be reimbursed for the amount of time and energy and effort that's been put into this.
Tim, did you want to say something?
Tim Ford, 80 Meyer Road. I'm all in favor of getting this finished as quickly as possible. But as a home builder, I would not allow him to go into start those interior finishes without completing the roof.
Right.
And the process out there is not conducive to what any builder with any amount of experience, minimal experience,
Right.
would follow. And so as I look at that project, I say that my suspicion is that you give that, that project does get completed and occupied, especially if it gets sold, there are going to be some lawsuits kicking around, and he's certainly going to be named as, sort of the approving authority, if you will. So I would be very careful about allowing him to start. I want it finished So, I'm not trying to throw a fly in the ointment.
Right, no, I think we agree that.
Yeah, the building inspector issued a letter today that says that he will not give the insulation inspection until the building is completely watertight. So he's on the same page. That came out today, so he put it in writing.
They're claiming that it's watertight, but if you look at that roof has a piece of EPDM roofing, which is just a piece of rubber roofing, lapped over the sides. There's little parapet walls, there's no flashing, there's no scuttles.
It's all going up and underneath the wall.
I mean, and then...
Yeah, I thought that's what he did. I mean, that's why he showed all the pictures today of all the openings that need to be flashed first. So he's not allowing them to do any interior work until all these openings are flashed.
Again, not that, Sameer's not here and I'm not dumping on him, but if you look at those windows, none of those windows are flashed and they've got the stucco coming into it.
They're just in.
I don't see how they're going to flash them now.
Right.
And so, I think the building inspector may need an additional set of eyes on that, because that's going to be an issue going forward. I see that.
Not a bad idea.
Not bad, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, I agree with Tim. I think we really need to make sure that our liability of the approving authority on this is watertight, to say, right?
No pun intended.
No pun intended, I guess.
Airtight, watertight.
Watertight.
Very
Anything else for Patrick?
No. Thank you for working on this very hard.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick.
Great, thanks.
Thanks for coming.
See you.
All right, and last thing here, we have a census data update with Andrea Della Russo. It's going to take me a while to get used to saying that. And Allison Jenkins. So Allison and Andrea have been working hand in hand to improve our census data and kind of a cleanup. And Allison, do you want to kick it off a little bit on what you're trying to work with Andrea on?
So I've just been looking at the raw data and comparing it to our assessor's office, to our water accounts, and just trying to basically scrub our data and see how we get our reporting and what our numbers are. I think that we as a board aren't always asking for the right data from Andrea, so we need to have a better understanding of the data in general so that we're asking her for the right reports so we get the data that we're looking for. I think it's very important because it impacts the number of affordable housing units we have to build. I don't know. I think we still have to work to clean it up. I think, but more of that is with Andrea, and I guess I look to Andrea to see what help she would need from us. I did talk to the state, and I've also talked to the U.S. Census Bureau. And I started a lot of this because of some people thought I was just questioning census data because I was against affordable housing, but I actually was questioning the affordable housing, the census data, because I thought the census data was flawed. And in researching it, found we do have some flaws that are affecting our numbers. When I talked to the U.S. Census to make sure that we as a community have the best data going forward for the 2020, I found that Michael, our old town manager, submitted to the U.S. Census that the town of Hamilton would not participate in updating our addresses in the database.
And so for people at home and myself, explain what that means.
So all communities were asked to participate in, it's called LUCA, and we were asked to participate in verifying our addresses, making sure they were accurate, making sure we had designated them all. I think we were supposed to map them out as far as almost like a GIS system for them to do it. There was work entailed in it, and Michael responded that he had insufficient staff and would not participate. Unfortunately, he never told any of us. I would have participated just and done the work on my own if he had brought it to our attention that the U.S. Census was looking for this. It also, it impacts us that we can't then correct or question any of their data once they put it forward, because we refused to.
Because we didn't provide them with any.
We didn't provide, and we said we wouldn't work on any of it. So, when I got that news, I then talked to the U.S. Census representatives and was talking to them. Some of Hamilton's data is skewed because we have a college within the town of Hamilton, and we have a seasonal community within the town of Hamilton, which changes your data. Most college students live in poverty, but it's when we didn't have that designated as an area, so it says how many of our Hamilton residents are living in poverty, but when they're actually in college living in poverty, which most students do. So I found out from the U.S. Census that MAPC, and I know Joe can probably help us with this, is working on a project currently. I'm sorry, and to back up, for Luca, the deadline for the town to participate and do any work was in 2018, so we can no longer say, oops, sorry, we actually want to participate now. We've missed, he's
Missed the window.
We've missed all the deadlines, so we can't participate. However, when I spoke to them, MAPC is working on a project for this year's census so that you can delineate certain parcels or certain parts of town that can be pulled from your data or added into your data. So we have a college campus. So if we work with MAPC and say,
Separate the college from the town.
we want you to be able to have it in our data or be able to separate that data so that we see the demographics without college students.
Yeah.
And we also can designate Asbury Grove if we choose because of its seasonal occupancy, because that is going to skew your data. So I think it's Tim Reardon I spoke to at MAPC.
I spoke to Tim less than 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so I spoke to Tim Reardon at MAPC. He was happy, and the U.S. Census was so happy to hear that people at our local level actually did want to work on our data and work towards it. So Tim was going to put me in touch with, send out an email to me, which I'll forward to Joe when I get it, so that we can designate any areas in town that we want to decipher. The only two I can think of is the college and seasonal. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. But I think that makes total sense, because then you can see the data two different
ways.
That makes sense to me.
Makes sense to me, and I'm glad that it's somebody I know that personally that I can rely on to help us.
He was great when I spoke to him.
Tim is great.
I think that's really helpful. As far as the town's annual census, I think Andrea inherited a lot of it, and I just, I want to ensure that we ask for the right reports. So I asked the state to give me, which they haven't yet, a list of the extracts is what you call when you ask for the data, and what data then you can expect to receive from that data. I think sometimes when we speak to Andrea, like we might ask Andrea for a list of households, but we get a list of people who check off householders.
No, I only assign one household per household unless someone comes in with a different name. Then we'll put them in a separate household until they tell us otherwise. But I wouldn't just put someone as a separate household.
So we need I guess what we should have been asking for is an address extract, and now I don't remember the name of it, of course.
Street extract, street maintenance.
So that we only get every single dwelling. We need to count our dwellings, not to count people or households. So I asked the state to please give me a report on what reports we can ask for and what data we can expect if we ask for that data. So that puts us all in the same thing. This is what we're asking for.
I can give you a list of that.
Okay. And then the second thing was a broader understanding of what we put in the census or don't put in the census, as far as addresses and how we do that. That I think falls more to Andrea, but I didn't know if Andrea needed more help from us to do that or understand that. But like, we have some addresses that we still need to clean up.
See, so that's part of my question is like,
sure.
But just like, I feel like you, myself, the assessor, possibly only because the records that we're now need to clean up that we recently talked about. You're saying that the assessors don't have it, but I have it. Some of the houses I know do exist. I drive by them, or I know the person living in them, so I'm not quite sure how we fix some of them. So I feel like it needs to be a group effort.
I agree with the group effort. I actually reached out to Asbury Grove for some of them, and Asbury Grove I will share with you as soon as I finish with it, but Asbury Grove gave me a listing of every address over there and which ones are seasonal and which ones are full-time.
And I don't have that.
No one internally has that. It's similar to Gordon Conwell.
Right.
No one internally knew the addresses of Gordon Conwell. So it is it's an evolution.
Yep.
So I now have that from Asbury Grove. And I think from that, then we have to make a decision. Are we sending censuses to the seasonal? And if we are, we should be sending it to all seasonal, not some seasonal. Like, we have to look at it and work with the state. That's what I was asking them for their manual on how to set them up and how to do them. But I think my goal, or I would be hopeful, is the town designed some database that's not a hard database, just in Microsoft Access, and you can dump your data in there. You can dump the assessor's data in there once a year, and it kicks out and says, wait a minute, these don't agree. And then in theory, you'd have some notes to say, yeah, the assessors say that assessor doesn't have 24 Rush Street, but you have 24 Rush Street.
Which is housing. Yeah.
Right, because the assessor has all of housing downtown as one parcel.
Right. And I have it as A through H.
Right.
Because there's only one property owner.
Right.
Right.
Assessing assigns those addresses based on property owner and where they're, so.
Right.
So something like that's gonna kick out.
So.
And we just have to say, okay, yep, it kicked out, but this is the reason why.
Right.
Some homeowners seem to set up their own addresses, though. That, to me, is a nay-nay, which we can have a discussion about. But if you have a house and no legal apartment within that house, they don't get to have a 25 rear or a 25A.
Which, since I've been here, we always ask assessors before we add them in.
So when I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the assessors, then looking at Salem, like, I'm trying to do all the research behind it, but I'm going a little googly-eyed, so I agree I am making errors. But there are addresses that we should not have in our census, because
You're saying like there's a 25A or a 23R.
that
or
could be
something
an
like
example,
that.
yeah. I don't want to use real examples, but there's
I'm generalizing.
Yeah, that they, so what they have to do then is we have to move them to the valid 25 address and then delete that address, and
As long as we're still counting the people for the census, and we can correct our address data that way too.
you
Okay.
are.
All right.
So they still go to the census, and when you run an address extract report, or whichever one the name of it is, that's losing my mind, you're actually getting a count of your dwellings. I don't want to count 25A as a dwelling if it's not a valid dwelling.
Right.
So
Makes sense.
I think it's down to a more reasonable number to look at them and try and then match them up. But then my goal was, if you had a database, you could have these notes. So when they kick out again, you just say, yeah, that's what it is. It's the housing authority, blah, 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 blah. And even the housing authority sends us a payment in lieu of taxes every year and don't list those addresses. So I think it's just it's a work in progress to get it all going. But I think.
So is your goal just trying to think about the whole big picture here on this whole census thing is a general data cleanup so that we can then access that data easier and be more specific in our request with that data kind of. So you're saying if I want to ask something specifically on head of household versus street address versus something like that, we can more specifically pull that data from some type of a database that gets made or ours morph into something, is what you're saying?
Well, even when you ask Andrea, with all due respect, I think we ask Andrea the wrong question sometimes, and then you might get the wrong.
Right, we think maybe kind of one thing is going to be the answer, but it's
back.
not quite the full answer.
So like I might ask you, and this is not specific.
It's fine. Yep.
I might ask you for registered voters, but that will, in the past, may have gotten me 17 olders because they're pre-registered. But I only wanted registered voters. So you have to ask for the voters extract. So you specifically only get the registered voters, not the pre-registered. This is what I'm saying. We're having a breakdown in the.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So she responds naturally. She thinks she gave you what you want.
Number, yeah.
You have no way of knowing. That's not your number.
Yeah, because the state extract is just a voter's extract. It's not, okay, this is your voter plus this. It's just a voter extract.
So we need to, that's what I'm saying. I think there's a few
We need
processes.
to educate ourselves as well, plus clean up the data.
This is what I'm saying.
All right, so then, for the sake of Andrea and time here, we've got your kind of big picture on what you're looking to do with it, worth working with Andrea. I think a meeting with Andrea, yourself, and Tina, and Joe would be in order to kind of get everybody on the same page, and maybe even a kind of little brainstorming session on how best to go about it, because I know you've got a lot of good ideas, and Andrea knows what she's got, Tina knows what she has.
And I'm just trying to think, too, if we can kind of distill out what the work needs to be.
Right.
I might try to see if we can hire a
intern or
data
something.
specialist or an intern or something, somebody to focus on it, and just do that for us for over the course of a couple months and have it done. And then it'd be easier to maintain.
Yeah, they can write the database very easily.
Yeah,
It's not, that's not a big thing. So what I've been trying to do with Andrea, and I apologize because I've been driving her cuckoo, but what I'm trying to do is actually look at the data, and then I look at Salem Deeds, I look at the assessors,
Right, you're doing all
I look on Zillow, everywhere to find.
Cross-reference and everything.
And then it's going to give us a small subset that I agree, it's a brainstorming session of, yes, this is an address, or no, this address is no good, and the person has to be popped to whatever, because I know you can't delete anyone unless you put them on
I was going to say, how are we going to handle when we say, I have to take you out of that household and put you here, because that might make a little conflict with the household as well.
No, I totally agree. It's going to be a process, but my goal is to keep reducing the fallouts.
And so I think maybe another discussion when you guys meet is kind of what's expected from everybody as far as, because I know Andrew's doing other stuff as well, especially as she's doing all the census stuff now, because we're speaking about census, and kind of a timeline. Are we talking 6 months, a year? Do you have any kind of a time frame that you?
Well,
yesterday?
Yes.
No.
No. Mine is, I'm almost done. Andrea, I think, is, I could ask her for the last extract of now the address. I think now that you, now you did, no, you, all the Gordon, I think, has been removed.
Right.
So now run that extract with all of that removed.
Well, we did that. I gave you that one.
You may have.
Yeah, because I think the one that you sent me lately was the one that you compared with the assessors and deeds. So now it's a one-page.
So it might be good just to have a check-in on what you've got so far in that, and then maybe talk about a timeline, and then kind of what's expected of everybody. Everyone kind of gets a task.
Well, yeah,
we figure out what's a reasonable
time
frame.
You're okay. Then I'll contact you, and we'll just start working on it. And like I said, I have the info into the state just to help me to try and understand it. as well.
I can also send you a list of the extracts.
Yeah,
that
I
we
think it's
have.
just, it's going to be a work in progress, and it is just, not determining philosophy, but determining how you're going to attack different things. That's all. But most of my data is going to be me saying, Andrea, run this extract for me. And then I manually have been matching them
And
up.
checking it all.
One by one by one, because I don't have access right now, and I'm not going to write the database today. So, but I can do it I'm pretty efficient at comparing the two data sets. So that's all I've been doing. But it would be great that the end result is, this is how many dwellings we have in Hamilton for the first time.
Yeah, be great to know that.
Jeff, anything on your end over there?
No, I think it's great, and I think it is important to get it right for the affordable housing thing first and foremost.
How many dwellings we have? Help.
Yeah.
It could really affect our numbers if we're talking about
Really affect
college.
your numbers.
I think one of the biggest things for me is that separation of Hamilton with everything Hamilton minus Gordon, Hamilton minus the seasonal at the Grove and other seasonals. I think that if we separate that data, that's really going to make a big difference. And
I was so excited Friday when they told me that, yes, you had missed the boat on that. They're doing it right now, so we were just close to missing the boat on that, but they will allow us to
I've already
give
got in
them
my
that
notes to
step.
call Tim Reardon tomorrow, so.
Yeah.
anything
okay.
from you, Bill? No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Bob.
All right, Bob, thanks for being patient. That completes our Selectmen, Town Manager, and Department reports.
At 9:15.
An hour and 45 minutes.
9:15. Now we move on to our consent agenda. Approved minutes from the Board of Selectmen on December 17th, 2018.
So moved.
Anybody second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, we're moving right along. Up next, going back to our first item on the agenda, we have with us Bob Patton tonight, so graciously come to talk to us and give us an update on the Green Meadows Farm project.
Thank you, Chairman Farrell. And again, it's Bob Patton, CEO of Green Meadows Farm. I really just wanted to come in and give you an informal update about where we are. It's been a while since I've had the privilege to be here, and we're at the technical phase now, having negotiated the host community agreement, et cetera, with Hamilton end of last summer. Some months later, here we are. We are about to begin, when I should say begin, we're about to present our materials, our technical materials. I'm not going to be doing it, fortunately. It'll be our lead engineers at Fuss & O'Neill. They're national with an office in Quincy who will be spearheading the presentation and the permitting process. We've had some pre-application meetings with Patrick Reffett, who's not here. I think Rick Mitchell was there at the first one as well. Our lead guy at Fuss & O'Neill is named Kevin McGarry. I think he may have also set up another meeting with Patrick Reffett. Again, a preamble to the presentation. We spoke with Fuss & O'Neill's, our team there today, and they think they're a couple of weeks more from being ready. Some of our team are saying it's okay, come in 80%, but they don't want to, they don't want to, and they're right. They want to come in and not feel that they have to sort of say, well, let's table that one because we know it's not 100%, because we know there'll be questions anyway. So I said, get confident yourselves, because you'll have to be presenting. You'll have to speak first. And if you're feeling, unprepared, or that all the docs and all the numbers aren't ready, don't go in there. So at any rate, I just wanted to say that what we're doing, and I think it's pretty well known, we're applying to do a 63,000 square foot greenhouse on the Hamilton property, just along the edge of the Topsfield line. A little over half of that is canopy, which is the polycarbonate clear roof. The other half is what they call the head house, which will have your administrative rooms, your sanitation, your locker rooms, because all the workers that work there, upwards of 2 or possibly 3 dozen, will have scrubs on every day. They shower. The sanitation and security is obviously extremely important. other technical matters, which I won't go into, but that all of us have discussed here many times, which will be, of course, the water, the electrical loads, the soil loads for our foundation, all the things that I don't know that much about, but Fusnil obviously does. I thought it'd be interesting, first of all, to say I've been visiting, as well as our general contractor here has become quite an expert on all of this. He's done these indoors in the past. This is the first of the hybrids that he's done. Our group has hired as our manufacturer Nexus Greenhouses. They're international. They build big greenhouses of all types all over the world. They have a new, relatively new division in cannabis, and it's exploding as it is everywhere around the world, and they've been fantastic. I was initially reluctant to deal with a big manufacturer. I thought, let's find a local greenhouse, at least a person that would be our sort of conduit to the large manufacturers. But we were so impressed with how hands-on they are. Their lead rep that we're with all the time is based in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He's down all the time. Once we start, he or his folks will be down at least once a week on the site, as well as their teams that come in and help us construct the box, the modular box, which they provide. They also are going to be very integral with providing the systems of HVAC, humidity control, air handling, the electrical distributions. It's all kind of complicated. The curtains, the light controls. And we had the privilege of been now to 2 of their greenhouses, one in Rhode Island last week, which was almost identical to what we're going to do. And it was kind of extraordinary to see one, which was about 2 months from opening, and going through in a sense they're very simple. They're metal sided. Ours, by the way, let me interject, and I found it sort of a matte finish. Theirs was two-tone barn red with gray down below. We're not sure what we'll do, but along the street we're going to do barn siding. We're going to do wood siding, and before I get into some of the aesthetics that we're really spending a lot of time on, the construction that we visited in Rhode Island, as I say, it was kind of neat to see what we're going to be doing. And as I was going through it, and we looked at some of their systems, an important one of which we're spending a lot of time on, as we've talked a lot about in this room, which is odor control. And the system that they put in is what we're doing. It's going to be configured somewhat differently. They like ours, it's limited air exchange, but when they do finally issue some air out, theirs goes out the back, and ours is going to go out the roof. It's just better for us, and but it's interesting. When I was walking with the owner, and I said, "What's it been like?" Because he had to go through much the same things, I'm sure, that the discussions that we've had here, both at the state level and the local level. And he said, one word has carried us through, all the way through it. And he said, and that word is agriculture. And he's a lettuce grower his partner is an entrepreneur that owns restaurants, I guess, in Rhode Island and Newport. But seeing the greenhouses that we've seen, and I more than ever understand these now as agricultural constructions. We know it has an unusual crop in it, we get that, and it has its issues that are extremely important to all of us. But it really, at this point, on this technical level, now that we're in the permitting, this is an agriculture building. And the people that are involved in it, the people that are working in them, are devoted to this, I really have to say. And so now as I stand and speak with other groups and with you all, I speak of it in those terms, that it's marijuana, yes, but this is going to be a farm operation, and there are people that are going to be growing on organic principles, and they're going to be proud to work there, and I really think Hamilton's going to be really proud to have this facility there. I really, really do. I couldn't say that enough, and I feel that working with these guys. Along those lines, we have a new, very important hire. I actually mentioned it to Chairman Farrell, I think in an email. His name is Benjamin Bork. He's going to be our director of cultivation. Now, we've had a consultant on that level since about August, because the cultivator really provides hand in hand with the engineers and the architects that we use and the builder a theme of our growing, and that has to do with the kind of fertigation systems that you're going to bring in, the kind of air handling, the kind of humidity controls you're going to use. These are all really, really important, and every grower, like every eccentric artist, seems to have a style. This guy, we were led to him through our consultant that we had brought in early, who was a California based grower of some size and repute. We found this fellow's name is Benjamin Bork. He's based out of Denver. He's late 30s. He's married, 3 kids under 10. He has had an organic grow called New Amsterdam Organics in outside Denver that he founded with a partner, purely organic, with a dispensary attached to it. And he has sold that now to his partner and was ready to make a move with his wife and kids. He's going to come on full-time with us. He's been sort of consulting with us on a retainer basis. He will join the company full-time next month, back and forth from Denver, to be part of the construction process, to introduce himself. Very much, it's very important to me, and it's very important to him, which is one of the reasons we like him, community outreach. He's all about meeting folks, meeting the first responders, meeting the town officials, meeting the neighbors. That's what he represents as much as he represents organic growing. He's LSU graduate botany scientist, a terrific person. I can't wait to introduce him to the town of Hamilton and to all the folks in this room. I think he's going to be, you're going to feel really pleased that this is someone. He will be, along with probably an EVP of sort of operations within the greenhouse, who will be more sort of HR and data management and transportation and all that kind of thing, whereas Ben can really focus on the cultivation elements. He will be sort of our face in many regards, and as I say, it's someone that I think you're going to really feel that this is a terrific sign for the kind of personnel and the kind of standards that the facility will show. Talking with him, it's interesting when you know, he's been through the issues of dealing with organics. You need slightly a thicker sort of tubing to get the fur to get in, because the organic, sometimes they're more viscous and all that. You get into this sort of level, and it's kind of interesting to finally get out of, no offense, but get out of boardrooms and talking about it, and then you get into, say, you know, we're actually building an agriculture facility, and that's been an exciting thing. One of the elements that I do want to circle back to, because it's important to everybody, and it should be, which is odor control. Nexus has who is going to really be designing what they're doing, and as you know, by the HCA, there will be a third party to examine what they're doing. But I feel more confident than ever about the systems that they're putting on. A lot of the stories that we hear, and there's justifiable problems with, you know, the smells that come out of some of these facilities. A lot of them were maybe older or retrofitted with these systems. If you integrate these systems of all these filtrations going on within, and then you have the final, whatever is emitted out, is with a fog coat system, which is a misting that they run a sort of a chemical mist through it, and up it goes. And it's not like a Febreze. It's a real interaction which takes it out of you know, sort of an odorous you know, problem. And I spoke with Jeff Warschauer, our Nexus rep, about that, and he said we will have data. We know what these fog coat systems can do when they're implemented with all our interior controls of filtration. He says these are used in huge poultry factories, Purdue, where I guess the stench is ungodly inside these, and they said, and they come out and it's not an issue, it's negligible. So I feel very, very confident. I completely respect the worries that the neighbors have had, and they'll be the first people I want them to come and see the system. I'm speaking to the Patton Ridge folks, and meet our grower and whoever else we bring in. So I think that's a really important thing that I wanted to, again, reiterate to you all. We're conscious of that. And then the last thing, and then I'll let you go to the other things that you have to do, is the aesthetics of what we're doing. Because when I sit in these meetings, I'm the old geezer in the corner, and they're all talking about electrical loads and all these kinds of things, and then I want to say, what's it going to look like? What's it going to look like from the outside? And we spent a lot of time, and so we've talked about, you know, and we're going to do some kind of a barn siding, you know, on top of, you know, the metal that is there. And also we're thinking about, like between the stone wall that's there, it's a scenic road, so we're going to leave the stone wall alone, obviously, doing a post and rail there and kind of move it and curl it around, and then the screening of the trees, and then behind it all will be the building. Can you see the building from the road? Yes, you're going to be able to see it from the road. I think at its closest point, it's maybe 90 feet, and then it goes back beyond 100 as it angles away. But we plan to sort of integrate it. So in one of our early meetings with Patrick Reffett and Rick Mitchell, they said the idea of staying in that agricultural aesthetic, whether it looks like, or country aesthetic of like one of the old equestrian riding stables that we used to see. I don't know if there are as many as there used to be, but around town, you know, it could be something like that. So people driving by, eventually they're going to know what it is. Green Meadows, they hire a lot of folks we know, and they sponsor Little League teams, and they do all that kind of neat stuff. And yes, they grow marijuana in there, but it's going to look like a rural agricultural facility. And hopefully it will, again, it will integrate into the community. By the way, I understand that you mentioned the new person coming on with the homestead. That's Ben Bork and our others, we got to meet them, because that's a very close interaction, and whatever can be done in terms of events and all that, we work together. Obviously, we're neighbors here, so that's something I want to touch base with you on as well. So again, I just wanted to say we're now poised for me to sort of step back. I'll be at all the meetings, but Fuss & O'Neill, our builder, our architects will now be center stage in all the public hearings. We've reached out to Greenbelt to let them know what we're doing and sort of coordinating things. I've had conversations with Wayne Kostenbaum from the Ipswich Water, trying to bring everybody in. So bring me your questions, open the transparency, and because we want to get going. We know the HCA agreement will kick in as certain permitting things going, the advance payments on the SRO that we want. We all want it because Hamilton wants it, and I couldn't be prouder that that's the main thing we're going to start out. And then as we hopefully do better and more comes in, there'll be surplus to do other things. So all of that's, all systems go, and I just wanted to let you know that. So any questions I can take them, but really that's I just wanted to give that to you all.
I just had a specific schedule. Do you have an idea when you think you're going to do a groundbreaking? What's your goal?
Yeah, well, it's all in the permitting, but if we could groundbreak this spring, and we were talking March 1st, I don't think that's probably going to happen. I don't know how long the back and forth takes, but as quickly as we can go, and our faith is in the team that we have. I couldn't be, and I got to believe that they're going to impress the Fuss & O'Neill team. I mean, there are 6 or 8 people that are full-time on this now. They're looking at it. We all get in the rooms. Everyone's integrating. Who's on electrical? Who's on water? By the way, the 2 greenhouses that we visited, the last one I saw in Rhode Island, they said, we made one huge error that we should have done. I said, what was that? He said, roof water retention. He said, there is so much water here, we could be getting almost, almost 100% they feel they would have gotten back. We're doing that. We've got all the cisterns will be going in there to hold it all. So we really are trying to get ahead of the
Coastal Farms in Rhode Island.
I can't remember which of the name.
A picture on Nexus website of a red engraved.
That's probably it. That's probably the one we saw. I don't even guess their name, but Steve was the owner and JT. So we went in. Jeff Warshauer set it up. We walked through it, and it's a little simpler style than ours. They're kind of doing a little bit, they're kind of do-it-yourselfers, but their systems are solid. They're using a system called Hortimax, which is the fertigation system. That's what we're going to use. But they're doing some of the interior build on their own. But it's very, very similar to what our look is. Ours is a bit bigger than that one, but that's essentially the look right there. If you're seeing the picture, that you probably are. A barn red with a gray understrip.
Bottom,
yep, you got it. And as I say, he just said we should have done roof water, and we're doing that. So
you're going to use stormwater, sir?
Yeah. If we, I don't think we'll need more than that. But if we have well capacity if we need it. But this roof water retention system, where we'll keep it, we'll treat it, and then send it back through the system. That's going to take a huge load off our water use. I don't think we're going to have any problem with sort of
Sometimes we can't water.
Oh, I know. We've talked about all the way through. We're doing everything we can. The wells are always a possibility. And as I say, the roof water people are now saying we should have done it because it's such a factor. So hopefully that's right, because we're doing it. And
Great.
Just real quick, where are you at with the state process with the agency?
Well, as you know, we have our full HCA. We're doing this exact same process in Southbridge now for a 3,000 square foot dispensary. We're very close on another in Chicopee. We're doing the last bit of, so that would be the 2. Our goal was to have two dispensaries attached to the cultivation. So now what we're doing is what's called the siting profile, which is we affirm that we have all the things that we've gained here, which are the HCAs, but now we have to show that we have the permitting going forward, and then the state now knows that we are in now to the permitting phase. By the way, I wanted to mention, I'm glad you brought that up. All the way through, we've always talked about local control in the HCA, which has the primacy here, which is great. But you have this benefit of this very, very heavy overlay of regulation from above. The same is true in terms of the build, because we'll have to go through an architectural review with the state as well as the planning board, which will be security elements, because we have to have double sets of camera systems, all the lighting, which we want to be discreet, but you have to have certain requirements. It was kind of interesting. We were going through bids on companies that do do the camera work, and we narrowed it down to 2 that will do sort of the security cameras, and then we went through and said, you have to have 2 different companies do it, so they both got it, you know, so, you know, these are the things that you find that are just built in, and so I think that mutual capability of leaning on one another. The state will have oversight. The town has #1 oversight, and I think that combination sort of gives everybody a little bit of ease. And we'll obviously try to do everything we can to just go through it. And then the third party is going to double check all the systems that we put in. And the last thing that I don't want to forget, we still haven't worked out that element about intra-thing trade. I've told Joe this a dozen times. This is not an issue in our minds. We just let's figure out the wording that works. It was about intra-company business. If we were sold to our own dispensary, if we somehow discounted it to ourselves, would Hamilton somehow be shortchanged or whatever? Things that I hadn't even thought of, basically. But we need to work out language that works.
It's kind of a gray area in the HCA that was signed, and really what it is the state law requires them to sell a certain percentage of the product that they grow to themselves anyway. So really what you're talking about is kind of actually setting what a premium tier pricing will be for third party.
Right.
So you're not necessarily discounting it to yourself, but you're being allowed to charge a market rate as opposed to a wholesale rate for yourself.
Exactly. So
we'll work out the language on that.
Whatever it is, as I've told you, this is not an impediment at this point. We're all going a long way down. This is not going to be an impediment. We'll figure it out and we go forward. So I didn't want to take too long, but
yeah, that was a draft from Mr. Patton's attorney. It's not something we need to discuss tonight. In the interest of transparency, we wanted to share that with you. Get your thoughts on it at some point. If you want to, if you have individual thoughts, send them back to me. We'll kind of figure out what the benchmark is. What's the
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised that there wasn't something already, some boilerplate out there, and if there is, bring it on. But whatever Hamilton is comfortable with, sign me up. That's where I am on
time
that.
to figure it all out.
We have time. We have time on that. But anyway, to wind it up, if we get permitted sometime this spring, we get busy right away. 6 months, 6 to 9, everyone wants to, all your builders want to say, well, it could be longer, but 6 to 9 months, if we hope to be operational in sometime next fall, that'll be fantastic. We'll start hiring. We've got our people coming in, and obviously we're looking at veterans and all the rest, and I can't wait for that to begin. I mean, all of us want to see the execution of this and what it could bring, and so now that begins, which is kind of exciting. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
your
much.
Thank you for your
appreciate you being transparent with us, coming in and give the update.
And thank you for waiting.
Yeah, thank you for waiting.
I would also, and we'll set it up again, when Benjamin Bork is around, if it syncs up with a meeting, just have him come in and say, hi folks, because I think that's really important to us, and he's the kind of guy that's is going to represent real well.
Yeah, no, and I think one of the best things about this whole situation is that you care about Hamilton, you really want to do the right thing, and all the people that you bring in, you're getting them on board and passionate about the same thing. And I think getting those faces out there and getting people to understand what's going on there and be okay with it and understand the whole thing, I think is really crucial to
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. That's the goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. Item number 2.
This would be much more brief than everybody else does.
Fiscal year 20 budget proposal. It's in your packet here. And Joe's going to give you the overview.
You have a very short document, and I asked Marissa to come, but really the big discussion points will come on Saturday. What you have here is a first page that just kind of gives you a quick primer on what is in our budget proposal. Bottom line is that we are forecasting revenue for fiscal year 2020 at a total of $33,096,377. Total town expenses would be for $13,715,742. Total school department expenses, this would not just be for the regional school district, but it would also be for the VOC, would be $19,380,635 for a total budget, which equals the revenue forecast of $33,096,377. There's also a water enterprise budget of $1,887,547. And if this budget proposal were to go forward and be approved by you all and by the town meeting, it would mean an estimated tax rate, projected tax rate of $16.93 per thousand. On a home worth $600,000 in Hamilton, it would be a roughly $10,160 annual tax bill. The documents behind this give you more detail on all of that high level that I just gave you, and the budget books for this budget proposal will be delivered, will be available for you all to pick up by Thursday. The Finance Department is working to put that all together in the manner that you received it the last 2 years, last year, sorry, and we'll be talking about all of it on Saturday morning, starting at 8 o'clock.
So the 60, did you say 1693?
Correct.
Yes.
From 1622?
No, from
1648.
1648.
1648.
We were in the 48 or 43, I thought, last year. Is that right?
It was
Marissa?
48. 1648.
48
For
for 19. Yeah.
And so, just so you know, the basis of this budget proposal is level serviced on the town side, except for the addition of one position in DPW, and with the addition of roughly 34% of a human resource function for the town, so a 0.33 FTE. We talked about this early on with you all, with the Finance Commission. These are things that we had targeted as, if we were going to do something beyond level service this year, these were the things that we had projected as this year priorities. There's more detail within the documents below you, below the cover page that talks about what we're projecting for instance, debt service this year, or capital improvement expense, things like that. And those will all be backed up in the budget book as well, with even more detail. The biggest expense here is, stuff that's beyond our control. We have increases in health insurance. We have increases in unemployment. We have
right. Things aren't getting less expensive, unfortunately.
And we did build into this budget some additional funding to be able to negotiate the 3 union contracts that are up this year, based on the discussion that we had with you and the Finance Commission at the joint meeting a month or so ago. So, depending how we do in negotiations, that may or may not all get used, but it's there. We need to have something there to be able to accommodate whatever gets approved in the budgets. I mean, in the union contract negotiations.
And just when we get the budget books on Thursday, or whenever we get them printed there, hopefully Thursday.
Marissa is meeting with the Finance Commission tomorrow night. She's trying to get theirs done in time to bring them to them, and then the other 5 would be available for you all on Thursday morning. So.
And then just to give Marissa a little plug, she's been working really hard on this with Joe and doing a great job, and the format will be similar to what we saw last year, which was vastly improved from previous times. As Jeff knows, we've had trouble looking at the budget with just munis reports and whatnot, but it's still going to be the basic format. But Marissa didn't get the kind of, formatting from the DOR that we had gotten with all the grant money. She's got it now, but it's just too late to implement it, and there's a lot of stuff to kind of go through to make work for us. So next year we'll see a much nicer format, and it's kind of almost like our annual town report that we get. Gets put together. I'd say it's similar to that, but it's more of a budget document. Yeah. And would you say it's kind of that? I mean, in the beginning, it's got kind of the same, it almost starts out the same as our annual report. It's got the data about the town and little kind of narrations and stuff like that. It's very well put together. And I think once Marissa and a few others work with it to get it to fit for what we need, it's going to be a really nice document.
Great.
From what I saw the day that we looked at it. And I think it's really going to help the townspeople really look at the budget and understand what's going on with it. I mean, it's a lot better than it has been in the last bunch of years, but I think next year we're going to knock it out of the park, really.
So the document you got, Marissa, and I know I didn't see it, but from discussing it, it's very similar to what the Government Finance Office Association proposes for their best practices in budget documentation. So, and it had been my idea, not knowing even that you had applied for that grant and had that coming from DLS, to be able to bring that kind of a budgeting process. But I always envisioned doing that in FY21, just because it takes a good 6 months to convert from one document, or one budget document to another budget document. So clearly she received it in late December. We just don't have the time to.
And it's not a document you can just dump information to populate, so you're going to have to hand, the first time is going to be the hardest. You're going to have to go through it item by item.
So we'll be doing that, and that'll give us a chance also to look more deeply with the department heads ahead of time as to, diving into their budgets. This is how we're going to organize things for you from now on. What opportunities does this give us to relook at the way we fund this department? Are there other things that we can change? And we'll get to other efficiencies, hopefully, in that process. What we had this year was to be able to we had enough time to sit down with the department heads and then the Finance Commission and say, this is where we're at. If you want to deliver the same level of services next year, this is what we need. So it's unfortunately not where I want us to be yet, but we have time to get there. For this year, we'll have a document very similar to the one you worked with last year.
Any questions on any of the stuff so far, just in the kind of 5,000-foot view of it? I mean, we'll be getting into full detail at our meeting on the Saturday.
Just so you know, too, that this document was updated even earlier today. When we were looking at revenue projections, for instance, initially, MRSA was just working with level service projection on, level funded projection on state aid because we hadn't got any figures from the state. But at the MMA last week, the governor delivered guidance that he was proposing a certain amount of an increase, a percentage increase to
the cherry sheet.
To the cherry sheet, and we adjusted that number today based on that guidance. We didn't go as far as the governor suggested. Want to be conservative. He said 2.7%, so we adjusted by just 2%. But there's a lot of time between now and
it's
what
really
the
not
does.
that much difference.
No, it really isn't. It really
it's
isn't.
about 10 or 20 grand.
So the irony is, you say sadly, but that
but it's something,
things,
right?
That's,
yeah.
It's something, and in communities like ours, it's good to know that we don't rely on state aid the way some municipalities in the state do.
Right.
So huge fluctuations in the sales tax aren't going to affect us the way they do other communities. That's a good thing. The bad thing is that, when you get a 2% increase in state aid, it really just amounts to about $80,000. So, well, it's not that great, but it's something. We'll take the $80,000 today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll move on.
Any comments? Any other comments? Jeff, anything from you?
Well, it's obviously a big jump in the tax rate. That's obviously concerning.
Yeah.
So what is it? What was it?
It's about
2.5%.
What was the prior, what's the existing tax?
48.
It's almost 50 cents.
25 cents. Yep.
What, you say 2.5%?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2.5%.
Yeah.
It's mostly the school.
It's
a lot,
mostly.
because people get hammered because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good thing that property values, the assessments are going up.
Yeah.
But between people's assessments going up and the rate going up, people are just getting hammered.
It's
Well,
tough. I
again,
agree with you, but with Bill's point there, a lot of that sets the school budget. We basically had 1% last year in our increase for the town side.
I think it's like 400,000.
And we can't maintain 1% and still run the operations here. It would be nice if we could, but things don't get cheaper with inflation and COLA and everything else.
Do you know what total town was last year? That an easy number?
Yeah, it's right,
Yeah, it was total.
right here.
Oh, beautiful.
So it was 12,161,000 last year.
So, wow, that's a lot.
But if you think in terms of last year's increase was only $400,000 rather, but you didn't have any need to project increases for collective bargaining agreements. They were all set and settled. You were in the second year of an insurance contract that you signed, so the increase was more known and not didn't fluctuate as much as it did this year. We had additional increases in a number of other areas, things that are beyond our control. We're really not changing that much in terms of what we're looking to fund. What we're doing is just paying for things that just didn't come up last year.
How much, not to get too much into the weeds, I know I can't be here Saturday, and I know you're going to talk about it, but how much is the need for the additional DPW worker based on the Patton homestead?
No, it has nothing to do with the Patton Homestead. To be honest with you, we've uncovered other issues just in the few months we've been here, and there have been other issues that we've known about that we have trouble focusing on. We have a DPW director who is our primary purchasing agent. He oversees all the water department. We don't have any backup there at all, and he needs it. Working with Allison, we've uncovered issues in fire hydrants and water billing and everything else that just issues we can't get to. He needs somebody else to help him get to it. I need somebody that can, I was describing it to the Finance Commission, it's like trying to hire an assistant principal. The assistant principal is kind of the taskmaster, sets the daily schedule, disciplines the kids when they get out of line, and so that Tim can continue to also focus on the long-range things. We've got him tied up doing the Town Hall Building Committee. We've got him overseeing the water plant project.
He's our tree warden. He's out looking at every tree.
And at the same time, he's got to be trying to coordinate the day-to-day work of all the staff and making sure that they're in the places they need to be in all of our day-to-day responsibilities. It's just not sustainable in the long run. What you'll do is you'll burn him out, or you'll get him to the point where he'll start looking at other communities that have a deputy and will compensate him better. I want to avoid those things. If we can hire one position that can take some of the day-to-day burden off of him, somebody with an engineering degree who can do some of that other work and allow him to focus on the long range, allow him to focus on employee development, on program development, we'll be in a far more better place efficiency-wise.
Can you speak to the some of the unclassified stuff, all the transfer?
Yes.
So is that sort of a...
Actually, that's actually something that I wanted to mention. When you look at the second handout, and you look at the comparison for fiscal year 19 to 20, one thing to take into consideration is as Bill just mentioned, unclassified other financing uses. This is actually, if you notice on the last, when you compare fiscal year 19 to 20, it was 155.11 in 19, and now it's over $1 million. This is actually the result of our implementation of the financial policies. So what's included in this number is a $570,000 to a capital stabilization fund, and then another $320,000 to the general stabilization fund. So
it's not actually money spent, it's money
no.
saved.
It's money saved. We're just
exactly
we're accounting for it.
And it's not being so it's not being funded through the tax rate at all. This is all just movement of free cash.
Gotcha.
So we implemented those policies to actually put funds aside. So that's where they are. But if you go to the second page, you'll see that all of that is being funded through free cash. So it's moving from free cash to capital stabilization and to the general stabilization.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
So it's $900,000. So if you really wanted to compare apples to apples, you would have to reduce that $900,000 from that $13 million number.
Right.
So we're at 12, really.
Yeah, so it didn't go up that much.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks,
Yeah.
it's skewed from that.
It is. It is, exactly.
We went up 600, 700,000.
Which was in our budget next year's going to be much cleaner because we're not setting all this stuff up.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So
Great.
with the DPW, do we have a work order system, or are we looking at see, click, fix, or?
I don't know what I'll be honest, I don't know what our work order system is.
We have one,
I had one that I set up in
it.
Munis for them, for the water department only. I don't know if they still use it. They didn't like it, but I loved it. But I think it would be, like everyone says, our expenses aren't going to go away. They're not going to change. But people want more information. If we had some way of having a work order system or a see-click fix or something where we can, you enter it into the system and you can see stuff, outliners that you're taking care of. You do? Yeah. Perfect.
A work order system, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Tim would probably be the best person
That's
to
okay.
answer. I don't know that it is available to everyone to actually. I don't know if it's available that everyone can actually go in the system and put in a work order.
Yep.
I think it has to go through Tim. I think only certain people are like users of the system.
I think you're right, from my
Right?
conversations with
So
Tim.
I think that Tim wanted to start that way for like maybe the first year and then maybe open it up to more people. But like I said, I think Tim would be the best person to answer that question. But I know he does have some type of work order system.
We had something, I think Michael got, it was called like Facility Buddy or something like that. It was a system that was a ticketing system, and I think.
Oh, I know what that is. Facility Dude.
Facility Dude, yeah. And I think maybe that's the one that Tim's been using, but I think most of the things are going through Tim, and then he's distributing up. A few other people can enter
I
them.
believe so.
And he just wanted to kind of get it established and see how it worked, and then roll it out on a bigger scale when he could.
That's what I remember from.
And like you're talking more like citizen says, I drove into a pothole, or the storm drain in my neighborhood is funky, and they submit something, you get an email back, so, you know, we've got your ticket, someone will contact you, or whatever the reply might be.
Just tracking it. And
just tracking it, yeah.
Confirming it, right, to get lost anywhere.
I don't want to cause you a ton of work. I think it might be a useful exercise, though, but if it's a lot, please tell me. If our tax rate is 1622,
48.
Yes, today it's 1648. Last fiscal year was 1622, and now we're going to 1693. I think it would be useful if we got in the habit of saying that of the 1690, do 1622, do the 3 years.
Do an average.
$11 is school.
Yeah, do a breakdown.
$6 is town. I think that's a useful exercise to have that.
That would be actually really good if you're able
Done
to
that every
see
year.
that trend. I think we did that before.
Yeah,
one time.
we usually do
broke it down.
that for the town meeting presentation.
But I think having it up on the treasure, like,
We could do that.
Just right there.
it's a good
Because
number
if,
for us
like you
to
said,
know.
like if we say, here's the 1% of the town, the schools were 6% last year, the schools are 7% this year, we're up 2.5%. And here's $6 to this, $10 to this. That
And
breakdown would be good
I don't
for
want it
residents.
by every department, but just the town is this dollar amount, and
No,
the
I think that'd
schools,
be good.
and do that for the last 3 years. And because I know when I used to speak to residents, it's hard, and I don't think they truly understand that such a big chunk
Is the
comes
schools.
off for the
Right.
schools, and it should go to the schools. I'm not denying that, but we should know where our money's going.
Right.
It's not a bad picture.
No, I agree, because I
agree with
think
that.
when I talk to people, they think we fix the whole tax rate is on us.
Right, exactly.
In which it's not. Majority of it is the schools, and we're just a small portion of that huge budget, so.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, anything else?
Marissa, any chance we can have that in time for Saturday's discussion?
Probably.
All right, okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry you had to stay
After the
so
budget books are
late.
done.
I appreciate you and all of your staff. I know
You
you've
and
been
Diane,
working
doing
very
great.
hard, and the slowdown has yet to come.
She's like, yep.
I'm hoping that right after town meeting, we can convince her to take a break, a big breather, and then when she comes back, we'll start right into doing the next year's budget.
Right into year-end closing.
We're changing the
before-
whole format
Right.
for FY21, so, she tells me how much time she needs off, she gets that, and then we jump into it when she comes back.
Any other things for Marissa on the budget?
No.
All right.
I want to say, too, I had a couple conversations with folks while I was at the MMA conference. I just want to say this before Marissa leaves. MMA was last weekend. I went on Friday. I didn't attend on Saturday, but a number of people I know in the field had lots of good conversations. And you would not be surprised at all to hear how many people told me how lucky we were to have Marissa. They knew her either from her auditing days or from other municipal experiences, and they all said, "Oh, you've got a great finance director up there." And I said, "Yes, I'm aware of that. Keep your hands off."
I agree. I agree. That's why I think it's, but sometimes the hard part is the hardest workers are pushed to work the hardest.
Right.
And that's
And the non-hardest workers, for lack of a better term,
I know, that has to do as much work.
it's a
the nature
hard
of the
thing.
beast,
We
right?
really
The
have to
vicious
work
cycle.
to, yeah, we really have to work to appreciate those who are really going the extra mile, and to try and maybe motivate others. But you've been doing an outstanding job, so is Diane, truly appreciated. So I just wanted to say that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
I mean, all we're going to do with the water rate discussion, I think we need you real quick, just to brief them. And then we're going to open the warrant, but we're not going to be voting on anything like that tonight. We're just going to be kind of talking about some of the items that might come up for the warrant.
I don't think we need you for that.
No.
We're just kind of generalizing in placeholders and stuff like that. When we get more specific, maybe we'll bring you back.
So I think.
So let's move on to the
water rate,
the annual water rate discussion, future water rate forecast, and a vote on it.
So yeah, that was your language on the vote. I don't know if we need a vote.
I wasn't sure.
One of the things that Marissa and I discussed, and we discussed it, I think, Sean, with you and Scott, trying to kind of prepare the agenda, is that Marissa here in our budget proposal has a recommendation for maintaining the water rate this year, which would be the 5th year of a promise that the board made when you reset the rate 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. We'll be able to make that work this year. We are projecting that beyond this year, that water rate may not be able to stay that way. In fact, it most likely won't. There's still some work to be done in addition to the work that's already been done to the water plant and to the water distribution system. A new issue has come up with when we have Tim here, we can discuss the water plant more fully. But that well that we have that kind of caused some of the problems before is causing a different set of problems with organics in the water and having to potentially pre-treat that. We have discussions ongoing about, do we want to run a water pipe out to, a water main rather, out Chabaco Road to the Manchester plant to be able to offer that as an alternative water source for us or for a portion of town. Those things will all be large projects, and if we follow through with them, that's going to impact the water rate, because you pay for those things through the water rate. You don't pay for them through the tax rate.
Right.
So we wanted to telegraph that, Mark, for you. Marissa might have some more. I know she's talked at length with Tim about some of what's coming down the road. So
I just actually wanted to mention that on that note that you have the water enterprise summary sheet as part of your package for the budget, and you'll notice that for fiscal year 20, in order to balance the budget, we would have to use $166,000 of retained earnings. So as it stands right now, we're already we need to use what one could call free cash in water to balance the budget. So that's one of the reasons why we need to start looking at the rates. If we're starting to use reserves just to balance our annual budget, we know we're not going to be able to keep the same rates for
last year you did the same thing.
Yes, but it was
60,000.
60,000. We're up to like 166,000 for this year. So I can only imagine that number would continue to grow if we don't adjust the water rates.
Right. Right, and we had discussed when we were working on some of the financial policy stuff, the water rate and an annual review of it.
Yep.
And so this is part of that process that we talked about also when we set the water rate to this, because we hadn't updated our cost for the water rate in, was it 15 or 20 years or something? It was an amazing amount of time without increasing the water rate. When we upped it, we had said that we would keep it in stasis for a little while so that people could kind of get used to it. But we never really talked about reviewing it. So basically that's why it's here tonight too, is to basically say we're going to keep the water rate the same for this coming year, but in the future when we do our annual review of it, we'll then discuss with Marissa and Joe, you know, what the increase should be and why and et cetera, and then we'll set the rate.
The other thing that we've also, obviously Tim wouldn't be involved in the discussions, is we have seen a decrease in consumption. So obviously there was a water ban in effect, so we don't know how it's going to be now. But so obviously that has affected our revenues as well. Right. So.
The irony is the only way to raise money in the water enterprise fund is to raise usage, but we're on a water ban, so we tell people conserve, don't use the water. Then we're not getting any revenue because they're not using water. You still have fixed costs. You still have a plant to run. You have staff to employ. You have insurance liability, all the things that go with running the operation, and you're limiting your ability to raise income because you raise revenue rather because you're telling people don't use the water. So, you know, the water rate therefore gets affected then.
Right, and I think it's compounded a bit because we've got
sorry.
water bans from the Ipswich River, and then we've got our own water ban with our plant upgrades,
Right.
so it's kind of compounded the issue.
Right.
Allison, did you want to say something?
I had a question. I don't know how well it will be received, but I just had a thought. So I have a water meter to my house, and I think I'm charged $60 a quarter just for having that meter, to having water service to my home. If you have one meter, so for an example, Gordon has 211 apartments, but I think they have 5 meters all over campus because they have one to, you know, different things. But each apartment complex only gets one $60 charge.
That's right.
Can we look at
Charging
each unit a meter cost? And not just for them. So I think Patton Ridge, again, wants to be treated like every other household.
They've got 1 meter.
They have 1 meter, and but they have 12 units.
$160 fee.
12 times 60 versus 1 times 60. Now, I don't know if the board doesn't have to agree with me. We'd have to have a discussion on that.
Yeah.
If this is something we want to look at. But in a lot of ways, I think it's...
So I certainly think that once you get to that too, we can put some numbers behind, you know, what does that mean if you are all of a sudden charging for X number of meters at Gordon Conwell and X number of meters out of the Ridge, and are there any others that are affected that same way? What does that revenue you realize from that? It'll be some additional revenue, and we should know what that is. Beyond that, you're still going to have the need to, you know, really look at how much you're charging for water.
Oh, no, yeah,
Right.
no. I totally agree with that. But could the board agree to pose the question to legal to see if we could or what we could
Yeah.
do?
Anybody opposed to that?
I mean, what's the revenue we're talking, though? We're talking, it's
Like 12
only
grand.
60 times, yeah, it's like $12,000, right? So
What'd you say, 210?
Well, they have 211
I just don't know if it's the...
times 60.
So you want to charge the quarterly infrastructure fee to the number of units as opposed to the number of
Meters.
meters.
I mean, everything helps, but...
Right, is it going to sway the needle enough?
It's not even
But it's
just
just,
this way.
it's just a
fairness.
general fairness. Yeah, no.
It's a fairness.
That makes sense. It's a fair question.
I think we'll go in more detail on Saturday.
More
I mean,
detail, and certainly the water rate, that discussion will continue for a period of time, so.
yeah.
Okay.
Because as part of this budget too, there's a debt estimate related to the capital proposal that we haven't discussed yet.
Right.
And if that goes through, then next year, at least to the debt service, we would be adding another $300,000 because for the first year, we're only paying interest. Second year, we
Right.
start paying principal.
Right.
So. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marissa.
Sorry you had to stay so late.
Drive safely.
Appreciate it.
Come in late tomorrow.
All right, anything else? Nope, okay. Did that one.
I'm sorry, real quick while we're on that, just to let you know, I mean, just for the rest of the board to know, you and I had already discussed it, Sean. The agenda items for the agenda for Saturday is simply to go over the budget proposal. And what I chose to do was invite Tim, because his is the only budget that, besides mine, that sees any kind of an increase or change in level service. So Tim will be there, I'll be there, Marissa will be there, but I'm not planning to have any other department heads there. If you have a need or a special question or want to ask for somebody, let me know, and I'll see if I can get them there. But, you know, we didn't want to just bring every department head in to just say, nope, this is just my same staff, my same operational, make them take time and on a Saturday if they don't have to be there, so.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you, Marissa. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, do we want to open the warrant or want to do a second reading? What do you think? Does it matter?
Go for the warrant.
Go for the warrant? All right. Our next item is the open the warrant for the April 6th annual town meeting and discuss pending and possible warrant items, including capital stabilization fund, OPEB accounting, and housekeeping, planning, board articles, road acceptance policy, the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District budget items, etc. Anybody want to make a motion to open the warrant?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Warrant's officially open. All right, so we have a kind of a bunch of placeholders here that we know about so far. The planning board has a, accessory apartment. Do they have another one too that they're working on? I think there's one other one that they're thinking about, but I can't remember what the names of them were.
There's the, I think it's VRBO stuff, right?
The VRBO or their Airbnb, Governor Baker's new bill, whether we accept it or don't accept it.
We also have some draft language from Donna Brewer on an amendment to the two revolving funds that affect the Parks and Rec and pool.
Right. That was a joint agreement with Wenham over the pool.
Right. So we have two joint agreements on the pool and the rec department, and this is a kind of a bookkeeping issue in that the
part of the Municipal Modernization Act.
We currently, the pool charges for use, and but the rec program uses the pool, with the people in the rec program not needing to pay for the pool. So we've been kind of doing it to just kind of balance the books, is moving a certain amount of money over from, but in talking about it with Sean and Marissa, we felt that it was better to formalize that agreement so that everybody, for transparency's sake, everybody knows what's happening and why, and show what the formula is that gets us to that number. We asked Donna to look at what agreements would have to be modified. She made a recommendation to try to modify both agreements with a single amendment. That draft language is in front of you. That could be a warrant article for the town meeting, as well as.
All right, so we've got those two housekeeping items. Another housekeeping item was on our OPEB trust. If you recall, a handful of years ago now, we were forward thinking and we set some money aside for OPEB, and since then the state has changed some of the verbiage, I guess, in the way the trust is. They want it in this, we have it now in a...
We have it in an OPEB trust. We
have an OPEB trust, but
trust.
We don't have it in an irrevocable trust. So in theory, our OPEB money now, we could vote out of OPEB at a town meeting with I don't know what the vote would be, 9/10 or something like that.
9/10 to vote it out.
But the state would much rather us have it in an irrevocable trust, that it's OPEB only forever.
It's also the only way that is actually recognized by the auditors.
Right.
So, Standard & Poor's, also the bond rating agencies would prefer to see it that way. Then it becomes an asset to balance against the liability of the OPEB. So without it that way, they don't count it that way. So in many ways, what we have is fine. This would be better. This was something that was brought to our attention by the Finance Commission, committee. So we appreciate their effort to bring that to our attention. And we researched it through legal counsel, and Eric Russell, who is an associate in Donna's firm, got back to us and recommended the language that is here.
Is there any downside to it?
No downside to it.
No.
I can't imagine there is.
Not really.
Maybe 50 years down.
The downside is we can't pull out of the intense vote. But we don't want to.
That's exactly the reason. That comment's exactly the reason.
Yeah. That's why we need
everybody else wants us to do it.
Lock it in.
Lock it in, right. Lock it in. And then just going back through the emails here and back to the planning board articles, there's modifications to the wireless cellular telecommunications bylaw that manage microcellular communication systems, which is, they've got an application before them now for a microcell system that they're debating, and we debated it a while ago at our board and told the guy no thank you at the time, but they've since changed their ways a little bit, but still it's a little bit complicated because we don't know the big picture plan with that company and what they plan to do. So some modifications with that bylaw, and then also looking to amend the signage bylaw to address yard signs is another item from the planning board.
Seriously? They gonna take that on?
Yeah, and then the other one, I don't know if Bill mentioned it, was the eliminate, for modification to the inclusionary housing bylaw. Did you mention that? Okay, so we've got eliminate on-site affordable units within senior housing projects, and B, modify the payment in lieu of affordable units option. And so they've been talking about that a little bit, and we'll get some more details on that when they've got it more together.
But this is just to be consistent with the state.
Right, to be more consistent with the state.
Right, not that we're changing.
Not that we're changing anything, right? We're becoming more in compliance, right?
Yeah, more in compliance. And the second one is actually that the current language in your inclusionary housing bylaw is, doesn't give us enough money for the value of what it costs to create.
Right, they
that
give us
affordable
50
unit.
cents on the dollar for it, and it just doesn't translate for us.
They want to modify the formula in there so that if somebody opts to do that, they're actually giving us more. We were able to negotiate with Canterbrook to get them to give us more than what the bylaw allowed for, but we may find a more uphill battle working with any other developers that come into town later on, so.
Right, because that money that they've given us in the past, and we were able to negotiate, like you said, on Canterbrook, isn't enough to purchase and build what we need to do to cover the it's actually better for the developer, worse for us in that situation, for sure.
And on the number 3 from the planning board, the amend the signage bylaw to address yard signs, this is actually in response to those kind of temporary open house at such and such school. Currently, our bylaw just didn't consider those types of things. It doesn't technically allow it, but we have a difficult time kind of enforcing that, especially on private property. So Patrick looked around and get some ideas from other communities and what they do with those signs, kind of limit the amount of time they can be out, the size of them, where they can go, and just kind of offer them some guidance on, okay, if you're going to do this kind of advertising for your local private school, you can do so for X number of weeks prior to the event, and then they have to be removed. Things like that. Things that would give the building inspector a little bit of weight behind just calling people up and saying, hey, you need to move these. So it was just a recommendation, certainly up to you to decide whether or not it was worth putting on or the planning board to decide whether or not it's worth putting on the article, on the agenda. But it's on me.
And then we also have street acceptance policy, possible for the warrant. Capital Stabilization Fund, which I mentioned before, which we just worked on when we were doing our financial policies. We all agreed on putting that on. What else?
Scott was doing some work on we had been discussing the possibility of doing a capital improvements committee to look at a multi-year approach to capital infrastructure management. He did find some reference to a previous capital management committee that doesn't seem to be currently functioning or staffed. He's looking into what that entails, so there may or may not be need to, instead of just doing a policy on our board, we may just need to make some amendment to an existing bylaw we have, and then determine membership on that body instead. But as long as we can kind of come to some consensus on establishing a body that will help us look at that long-term, both for our needs and for the regional school district's needs, so that we can consider all of our future capital needs together.
Right, and to piggyback on that, we have on the agenda here the Hamilton Wyndham Regional School District school budget items, and we discussed a little bit, as we did last year, with the separating the capital from the operating budget of the school, and we'll kind of see how that goes with the budget process with the schools and their budget, and we kind of loosely discussed maybe separating that again so people really understand what their capital improvements they're looking for this year and the following years, and what the operating budget is. I think it's important that the town really know what they're asking for in total, because we write one big check to the schools and they can distribute it how they please. But we really want to make sure their capital improvement plan is on track with ours. And I think separating those two items really makes it kind of, I don't want to say it it hinders the school. I think it actually kind of helps the school, because then they get a better chance to sell what they're looking to improve or fix at the schools. It gives them a little bit more of information to the public to educate them on what they're asking for. Whereas if it's just one big budget, people don't see all those kind of specific things. They may just vote on the whole total thing and not understand all that they're voting for. Any other articles that you guys can think of, or citizens petitions? Have you heard anything?
No.
Fairly quiet. We're just getting started here. All right. Moving on then. Second reading of the Complete Streets Policy. So we should have a copy of that in our packets, which is the last one we've got here.
Allison, at the risk of making myself look foolish, I'm going to ask a question. I was informed in between meetings that there's some kind of a proper format for this that I don't have, I guess, and I need to get a copy of it from you so that I can make sure this and all other future policies go into the right format.
I can send that to you, and I can make a motion that we accept it.
Once formatted.
Once formatted properly.
Once formatted to the, yeah, all it is just saying who it, kind of like who it affects, what date it goes into effect.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these, when I went back in the history of the old Board of Selectmen's office, you couldn't tell when it was accepted or anything.
You didn't know anything,
It's just a
right.
policy, so it really will
Yeah.
just help us going forward.
That's
So
great.
I can send that to you.
You're going to send that to me, I'll get this incorporated into that format, and subject to your vote, we'll make sure all the right boxes are checked.
So I make a motion that we accept the Complete Streets Policy,
Pending formatting.
pending formatting.
Second.
Any discussion? Just for the folks at home, the Complete Streets Policy is a program with Governor Baker that kind of helps us with grants and monies and all kinds of programs, saying that, you know, we're looking to improve. And the policy that we're putting together here is kind of a boilerplate for a lot of communities. And we've kind of customized a little bit to fit ours. And it's just a good practice, basically. So,
Right.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Before we go to new business, just the last thing you'll notice sort of at the end of things, I just shared this letter with you. I just did this as a way to let you know we got, you know, kind of a pat on the back from the state and from the governor for, governor's office rather, for completing our best practices in the community compact program. And, you know, this makes us eligible to ask for more best practices.
Yes.
and focus on other areas as well. So I'll be following up with them at the community compact to figure out what else we can now bring before you, or some ideas of things we could do next. So
If we haven't already, could we just put it on the web or put it out on social media?
yeah,
The letter from.
yeah, I don't think I had yet. I wanted to share it with you all first,
Oh,
but I'll
that's
get it out
fine.
there. Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
All right. New business. Allison?
I don't have
Good answer. Bill?
anything. Shocking.
Don't let me down.
Hoping to have some updates on the sign, special permit.
Oh, yeah, your zoning stuff. Our new LED possibility.
No, Chief Stevens is on vacation, I think.
Yeah.
But on that note, we didn't mention it yet, but we work real hard. It's good to have a celebratory event, but we went to the retirement party for
Oh, yeah.
Stevens at the Amherstport Yacht Club on a week and a half ago. It was an
Great event.
excellent event, well attended. All the speakers were well prepared. Really, it showed the strength of our community, the caring of our community, working together, coming together. All the different departments were there, and even our police chief and our fire chief, how they worked together over the past number of years. So it was pretty impressive to see that. So I was glad to be part of it.
Yeah, it was great.
And thanks for speaking, Sean.
Thank you. Jeff, any new
No,
business?
nothing.
No new business for me. We've got a lot that if
been
you saw our
pushing
list
stuff
from the
off,
minutes,
yeah,
we've
yeah.
got a lot of stuff on our list, and
pushing
we'll
off.
keep checking off the boxes as we go. Anybody want to make a motion? To get out of
Make a
here?
motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You have
Do?
minutes.
Aye.
You have minutes there. Have it all signed.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.